All right, we'll be reconvening this meeting after a closed session. We will start with our land acknowledgement. We recognize that the Mount Diablo Unified School District sits on the territory of the Confederated Villages of the Lejeune, the ancestral and unceded land of the Bay Miwok and Northern Yokut, the successors of the sovereign Verona Band of Contra Costa County. As members of the MDUSD community, it is vitally important that we not only recognize the history of the land on which we learn, but also we recognize that the land we inhabit and learn on is the ancestral land of these people who are alive and flourishing members of MDUSD and broader Bay Area communities today. You may stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I do want to acknowledge that Trustee Mayo has arrived. We did have some incredible kind of traffic in the area. So some of you in the room are nodding and aware. Okay. 6.2 is review and approval of minutes for regular board meeting.
Madam President of the day, Madam Vice President, I move to approve the minutes for the regular board meeting held October 11th, 2023 as presented.
Second.
Okay. We'll be doing a voice vote and an electronic vote this evening. So Trustee Cowan?
Yes.
Trustee Mayo?
Yes.
President Nzewi?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So that motion passes. .3 review and potential. Oh.
Would you like to announce to this public where our President Nzewi is?
I would. Thank you for reminding me. President Nzewi is participating via teleconference. She is at 333 East Ocean Boulevard in Long Beach. She is here and we can hear her voice every now and then. And Trustee Barrios is joining us. Did you enjoy the traffic?
Oh,
Okay.
it's so bad.
We're glad that you're here. President Nzewi is joining us by teleconference. And so we're going to be doing voice voting and voting electronically, although you always get to do your voice vote. So it'll be the same for you.
Okay, next, yeah.
All right, so we're at 6.3, review and potential approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda for this evening?
Yes, Madam Vice President, I would like to move item 12.1 to item 8.0.
I move to approve the agenda with moving 12.1 to 8.0.
Second.
Trustee Barrios?
Yes.
Trustee Cowan?
Yes.
Trustee Mayo?
Yes.
President Nzewi?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes.
Oh, sorry.
All right, so 7.0 report out action taken during closed session. 7.1, the board received, this was negotiations. The board may discuss negotiations or provide direction to its representatives regarding represented employees pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. The board received information. 7.2, discipline, dismissal, release, or reassignment of public employee, Government Code Section 54957B1. The board received information. And then 7.4, readmission of student 01-23 to regular schools in the Mount Diablo Unified School District. The board voted to approve the readmission of student 01-23 to regular schools in the Mount Diablo Unified School District. President Nzewi, Trustee Cound, and I voted unanimously in favor. And now we move on to 8.0, public comment. The public may address the board.
Actually, we're gonna, we moved item 12.1 there. Yep.
Excellent.
Yep. So tonight, Madam President and board members, we're in for a treat. We have 4 students from Westwood who created a slideshow that they shared with their schoolmates. And they're going to come this evening and they're going to share that slideshow. But I will turn it over to the proud principal, Ms. Klingler, and she will take it from there.
Push it. There we go. Good evening, everyone. I am a proud principal at Westwood Elementary School, and I have the honor of introducing a group of our students from our deaf and hard of hearing programs who put together this presentation during Deaf Awareness Month last month and presented to their peers to help them learn about different kinds of hearing loss and to advocate for their needs within our school community. And they worked collaboratively on this presentation. Unfortunately, one of the students is unable to join us tonight. So we have 3 joining us, and it is my pleasure to introduce you to Mr. Pablo Cabrera, who is a 4th grade student in our itinerant deaf and hard of hearing program. Come on up, Pablo. We also have Anaí Garcia Gonzalez. Anaí's in our 5th grade special day class for students who are deaf. Did she come up? And then we have Jaden Yanez, also in 5th grade in our special day class. And I'm going to turn it right over to them. This is your clicker. And is that your job, Jaden? All right. Do you want to test it out? Mhm. You want to test it? It's going to move the slide that way. Yeah. All right. Turning it over to them.
Right. It is a pleasure to be here. My name is Pablo Cabrera. Anaí Garcia. And we put a presentation together all about deaf awareness. But before we begin, it is important to know how our hearing works. So sound travels through the ear canal, bounces off the eardrum, goes through those 3 bones connected to the eardrum into our cochlea, through the auditory nerve, and into our brain. As you know, our names are Pablo Cabrera, Anaí Garcia, September is Deaf Awareness Month, so we put together a presentation all about deaf awareness. Today, we are going to talk about 3 things. We will be talking about what it's like to be deaf, how background noises impact students who wear hearing aids or cochlear implants, and other stuff about deaf awareness.
Let's talk about what it's like to be deaf and the different kind of hearing losses.
When a person is deaf, they don't hear sound very well. Some deaf people can hear some sounds while others hear nothing. This is why they wear hearing aids or CIs. There are different hearing assistive technology class devices for different types of hearing losses. There are 3 types of hearing loss: unilateral, bilateral, and bone conductive hearing loss. Being deaf has some advantages. For example, when your younger sibling is singing an annoying song, you can mute your hearing aid or CI and not hear the song or them singing.
Let's talk about Let's talk about unilateral hearing loss.
A unilateral hearing loss means the person needs only one hearing aid to hear well.
Here is some information about bilateral hearing loss. This is Jaden and he wears hearing aids. This is me and I wear CIs. And then down there is Pablo and he wears different hearing aids.
When someone has a bilateral hearing loss, they need 2 hearing devices to be able to hear well.
There is some point about a bone hearing loss.
A bone conductive hearing loss means the sound travels through the temporal bone, the eardrum, goes through the cochlea, and finally through the auditory nerve and into our brain.
How sound point impress the AA student? When a student talk to other students during class time, their conversation get picked up by the FM. This caused the DHH student to hear the student conversation more than what the teacher is saying. It
is important not to talk during class time so the DHH student can hear the teacher give instructions and or when they are teaching.
Now we will be talking about DAA classes. At Westwood, we have 2 DHH classes. In A4, we have Miss Joni. She teaches kindergarten, first and second grade students. In C5, we have Mrs. Ree. She teaches 3rd through 5th grade students.
There are some students who are mainstreamed, which means they're in a regular class and don't need as much extra support.
This video is all about Allie's app.
Now let's talk about the importance of learning sign language. It is important to learn sign language because what if someone is deaf and they're trying to communicate with you? You might not understand them, so it is important to learn the basics of sign language.
Namaste, staying well tat. Don't have conversation during class. Be mindful of sounds you are making in class.
If a deaf student is having a hard time paying attention, try to help the student by repeating the directions again when it's the appropriate time. Thanks for watching.
Anything else, Ms. Kungla? Can we just, on behalf of the board, you want to just thank them for, board want to thank them for coming? Anyone have any board comments?
I just want to say thank you so much. We learned so much from your presentation, and I feel like I really want to take ASL because I need to learn more about how to communicate. So thank you.
I'm sorry, my daughters took ASL during a summer school class, and I have been surprised how many different times they have used the ASL they learned to communicate with others in the library and in the grocery store. So it's very important, and I'm glad you shared this information with us.
And I just really want to thank you students for coming, and just know that I'm your biggest advocate and your biggest fan. And I definitely want to thank the parents for trusting us with their beautiful children. So thank you so much. Thank you. And now if you all would like to escape before we start, yeah, thank you. Thank you.
This will be a tough act to follow.
Yes.
Really? Oh, thank you. Yeah, because I have a feeling that. All right. We are going to move on to public comment. The public may address the board regarding any item not on the agenda. We are going to allow the full 3 minutes for each speaker tonight. Please be mindful of the time. We will give you a reminder if we need you to wrap it up if you've gone beyond your time. All right. And I'm going to do my best with names. Please don't hesitate to correct me. Okay, so we'll start with Ian Maslin and Amanda Beam.
Oh, there. Good evening, board members. I'm actually not here to speak to you on my behalf, but on behalf of my student, Joseph Beam. I'm an El Dorado science teacher, and I first want to start out by saying it's my extreme pleasure to actually be a teacher. It's why I wake up every morning and go to work, and I'm extremely happy. But I can't do everything myself. I do need support and I do need help. And the reason why I'm addressing you today is I need help in making sure that my student, Joseph, has access to all parts of my classroom. I currently have 37 students in Joseph's class, in addition to himself, myself, and aides. And I need room for 37 chairs and 37 tables. And I'm not able to give Joseph the access that he needs. He needs 30 inches of space to all the areas of my classroom. He needs 48 inches of 30 inches of width and 48 inches of depth, so he has room to turn around to get to the sink. I teach science to get to all parts of the classroom. I need fewer students in my classroom. That way I can remove some chairs and some tables and give him the access that he needs. I truly believe and feel in my heart that he deserves the same access as my abled students do in order to do that. So I'm asking the board, would you please consider hiring more teachers, particularly science teachers, so we could have smaller class size so I could give Joseph the access that I think he deserves. Thank you.
Linda Ortega.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, trustees, Dr. Clark, members of the audience. My name is Linda Ortega, Medea Vice President. I am here tonight to speak about something that does not cost anything, but it's very simple to do: customer service. Since the beginning of the school year, I have been contacted by many of our Medea members about how emails and phone calls are not being returned from various district departments. During my conversations with our members, I hear how frustrated they are and how difficult it has been to contact someone just to answer a simple question. Recently, I have been working with HR, payroll, the benefits department to try to resolve these issues. However, like my members, many of my emails and phone calls are not always returned. My ask is this: that a simple email with a message stating your email or phone call was received and that your question will be answered in 24 to 48 hours. Simply ignoring an email or phone call is very disrespectful, especially to someone new to the profession and new to our district. Thank you.
Alyssa Juarez.
Good evening, trustees, Superintendent Clark. My name is Alyssa Juarez, and I'm an elementary teacher librarian at Bel Air, Mountain View, and Westwood Elementary. First, I'd like to thank you for agreeing to cover the increase in medical benefits this year. Seeing how quickly and wonderfully the district and Medea were able to come together and work this out gives me hope that the upcoming contract bargaining will continue in that same manner. Today, though, I'm hoping to impress upon you the necessity of restoring the middle and high school teacher librarian positions. Just to remind you, these positions were cut in March of 2020 in order to help the district afford the 5% salary increase for Medea and our union siblings. But with the pandemic that started almost immediately after, you decided to renege on our agreement and we were left with nothing. At the time, I understood, as no one knew what would happen to educational funding, and the worry was that it would be slashed drastically. But as we have seen, the complete opposite occurred, and we have since seen an unprecedented amount of money being funneled into our public schools. In fact, MDUSD now has a reserve of over $182.6 million. That's $167.9 million above the 3% required. Last year, MDUSD underspent by $57.7 million. I remind you of these figures because the cost savings of cutting the middle and high school librarians back in 2020 was about $500,000. With $167 million, you could restore these positions for the next 300 years. And even without touching the reserve, you could still afford to restore these positions by tapping into the $57.7 million you didn't spend. So here's my Save the Librarians pitch. For only $1 million, you could hire a full-time librarian for every high school and a part-time librarian for every middle school. For $1.5 million, you could hire a full-time librarian at every middle and high school. We have an amazing opportunity to do something that will positively impact our students in bringing back the middle and high school librarians. And I'm speaking to you because whether you understand it or not, you have the power to direct how money is spent in this district. All you have to do is tell Dr. Clark that this is what you want done. I know because I sit on the executive board for Medea and I do the same thing. The money is there, and the money you get every year is meant to enrich the education of the students you have now. It was never intended to be squirreled away for some mythical future crisis. If we can come out of a pandemic with a surplus of over $167 million, I think we could use a small percentage of it to restore the lost programs that benefit our students. Thank you.
Angelique Mullen.
Hello, I'm Angelique. I'm another librarian at 2 elementary schools. I can't possibly top what Alyssa just said, but I do want to say that one of the reasons we do need secondary and librarians is book banning is on the rise in so many school districts across the country. And I know that I'm confident that it would not happen here, but I do feel like it's important to educate our students about this. Even just talking about banned book week the last couple weeks, a lot of the students are still unclear. They think banned books are bad. So I was trying to explain that, no, we have to read these books and decide for ourselves. And so it makes me so sad to think about the libraries that don't have a librarian right now. At least two Title I schools and all the secondary schools, most of them anyway, don't have a librarian, a credentialed librarian who is trained in collection development, digital citizenship, and all these features of things that we do that we are trained to do and we know how to do and we're excited to do. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Bonnie Shea.
Good evening. Thank you for having us and listening to the important messages we have. My name is Bonnie Shea. I teach elementary general music. Our title officially is vocal music. We teach K-5 once a week music in the elementary schools. I'm here to talk about the positions and the teaching schedules of elementary general music. Our CBA states that the maximum class load is 9 classes per day, 6 on minimum days. Historically, in practice, our site assignments were designed not to reach this maximum, therefore leaving flexibility for other valuable contributions in our school communities. Recently, this has changed. Our time at each site has been reduced, removing all flexibility to offer anything in addition to just our teaching class load. First and foremost, student performances. Music performances are important to the students, teachers, and families, that it's important that they have opportunities to perform. It's a vital connection between schools and families. Frequently, a student performance is the only visible evidence a parent or family has of their student's music education. Student performances provide crucial public exposure for general music programs at our schools and are expected by the school community, and advocate not only for music education, but also for the district. As MEDUSD struggles to attract and retain student enrollment, student performances are an important factor in demonstrating what a well-rounded education MDUSD can offer. Performing is also a natural outgrowth of a standards-based music curriculum. Successful performances take a lot of time and work behind the scenes. When we have flexibility in our teaching schedule, we can provide adequate rehearsal time for successful student performance experiences. Without any flexibility in our schedule, and we are pushed to teach just from bell to bell of just teaching classes, although that is curriculum development and delivery is a passion of all of ours, we're missing a critical element, which is student performance. Another factor is instructional programs. Programs we offer, such as guitar and ukulele and chorus and opera a la carte, are all important instructional opportunities to offer our student population. Chorus, for example, is a foundation for students as they continue to middle school and high school VAPA electives. And without elementary school chorus, there's no feeder program for secondary school choir courses. This is a glaring inequity, and we would like to be able to provide these key experiences for the students so they have the foundation necessary to participate in choir and all other music programs in middle and high school. Item 3, classroom teachers' instructional time is best used when interruptions are minimized. When we have flexibility in our teaching schedule, we can strategically organize music class times so that classroom teachers do not end up with dead time in their classroom schedule. For example, sometimes moving a class time earlier or later just by 10 minutes can eliminate lost instructional time from the classroom teacher that they're experiencing in between music class and maybe other schedule items, such as lunch or classroom SEL time, math block, ELA block, etc. Providing flexibility in our teaching schedule allows us to arrange a daily schedule for the rest of the school that makes sense for classroom teachers and for students.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you for your consideration.
Danielle Hoffner or Danielle Hafner?
Good evening. My name is Danielle Hafner, and I too am a general elementary music teacher. I'm part of the team that serves every elementary teacher and every elementary school student in our district. As Bounty talked about our maximum schedule being implemented this year of 9 classes per day and 6 on a minimum day. I did a little calculations. That's 42 classes a week and a conservative number of 25 students a class. Quite conservative. That's 10,050 students a week that we serve. And while maximizing our class days like that seems like an efficient move, we have seen losses, as Bonnie also said. One of the things that we did not foresee, perhaps, is that scheduling 9 classes in a day around non-negotiables like recess and ESL blocks and those kinds of things make it so that many classes are having to be scheduled back to back, meaning without the customary 5-minute passing time. Imagine going from teaching a kindergarten class to a 5th grade class to a 2nd grade class without any time in between. Those children are not getting their full 30 minutes of instructional time, nor is that teacher giving the opportunity to write notes about what just happened in this class before this class comes in, or be able to set up the class for each different group of students. We've also found that in maximizing the classroom schedule like this, we have multiple schools being served by multiple music teachers. And here's an example. We have one teacher who is teaching at 4 schools. Every day he is teaching the maximum load. On Monday, he teaches 9 classes at school A, and then another teacher comes in on Wednesday to finish things up. On Tuesday, he teaches 9 classes at school B, and he shares that school with another teacher who comes in on Thursday to teach a full schedule. On Wednesday, he teaches at a third school, which he shares with 2 other teachers, one who teaches on Thursday a full schedule and one who teaches Friday a full schedule. And on Thursday and Friday, he is the school music teacher at those schools where he can provide a consistent curriculum across the school community, as well as have good communication with that whole school community. We're finding that while it seemed efficient to maximize our use of time in this way, we're finding is causing a loss. This man used to do many performances and other kinds of activities, which he cannot not do at all this year. And he's not the only one. So for the sake of our students, for the sake of our district, and for the sake of getting and retaining new, fresh talent in our district, we urge you to consider changing, when the negotiations are happening, our cap to 8 classes per day and 5 on a minimum day. Thank you for listening and your consideration.
Reagan.
Good evening. It's really nice to be able to take a moment just to sit back and really think about the history that we have had at this district. This is my 21st year in the district. I remember carrying boxes of mugs, those wonderful I'm appreciated mugs that we received for Teacher Appreciation Week. And then getting yelled at because I decided instead of stacking them up, I would go ahead and dump them there. Getting yelled at. Probably wasn't one of you board members saying, hey, somebody's going to need to clean that up. I don't know if the respect level has changed over the years. It's wavered here and there from management. And I was going to speak to what Linda was speaking to earlier, Ortega, where it is when you have to take time off of work to be able to get an HR issue done rather than a simple email, a simple phone call, that you leave messages that are unreturned. It really, really doesn't work. We are a district serving over 30,000 students. We are Medea strong at 1,500 plus educators. We can't have vacancies that stay throughout the whole school year. It affects our colleagues. It's not fair to our colleagues to say, oh, grade level lead, go ahead and grade these assignments here. Go ahead and make lesson plans for the substitute for that unfilled classroom. That's not the type of respect that teachers come into the profession for. And it's just really unfair. I was going to have 3 asks overall. To hear our colleagues just saying $500,000 would have solved this, thinking back over the years when it is all the students showed up, 4th and 5th grade students, instrumental music. Oh, guess what happened? Cut. Direct programs. I realized that we were in a financial situation then. We are not as in much of financial trouble now. Think about the future of this district. What will the next 21 years look like? Will we have the respect? Will we be able to attract and retain those educators to make our district a destination district? Our students deserve it. Our students
deserve the best.
Thank you.
Jennifer Dye.
Good evening. I'm Jennifer Dye. I'm reading intervention teacher at Bel Air Elementary. And I'm here today to say that back many, many years ago, I don't know if it was 2008 or 2009, I spoke to the board when you were looking to cut 20-1. And I came here with my research and reasons why not to cut 20-1, but we financially cut it and it's been gone. But the board promised at that meeting that we would bring it back when we had money. Well, from what I hear, we have money. And at our Title I schools, we need smaller class sizes. It's not equitable to give Bel Air equal numbers of students as other schools. If you look at our data, which I have many numbers I can show you, our beginning of the year data for Dibbles in 2021-22, we had 18% of our kindergartners coming in ready on grade level. The following year, in 22-23, we had 16%. This year, we have 11% of our kindergartners entering school ready. Our numbers are dropping. Our classroom sizes are full, beyond numbers we should have. We need more services at our school. Currently, we have a resource teacher who's there 4 days a week. It's not enough. Kids go from my classroom with minutes for reading, and then they get fewer when they qualify for resource. That doesn't make logical sense. They should be getting more minutes, but we don't have the resources for it. Also, we had a psychologist 2 days a week in the past. That was not enough. This year we have a psychologist 1 day a week, and I just counted the Mondays that she can come. From this point on, that makes 22 Mondays. We have a backlog of kids that should have been tested last year that honestly, if we were at a school where parents knew their rights, they would already have sued the district. We're out of compliance on some of these kiddos because we don't have time. We don't have the resources. We can never catch up with what we have. Our students are falling further and further behind because days go by, their lives go by. We have a 5th grader who I've been asking since she was in 2nd grade. She needed to be tested. Now she's in 5th grade. I think they're going to test her this year, hopefully. We need smaller class sizes. We need more services in order to make it equitable for all of our students. Thank you.
Julie Kennedy.
Good evening, trustees, Dr. Clark. My name is Julie Kennedy. I'm from El Monte, and my message is simple, and it's the same type of theme you're hearing from everybody. We need smaller class sizes. It's becoming increasingly more difficult to meet the needs of 30+ students in a classroom. They come through my door needing so much from me for so many reasons. I have a student who suffers from PTSD, a non-English speaker who speaks Farsi that I get no district resources from because from what my principal says, there's nobody in the district that speaks Farsi. I have a student who suffers from extreme anxiety, a student who cannot keep them, or students who cannot keep their hands to themselves. And that's not even on top of the multiple students working 2 grade levels below on a 1st grade level in reading and or math. How is having up to 34 kids in that class creating an environment for a teacher to meet all those needs of all those kids? How is this practice best for students? And the simple answer is it's not. I know the district likes to point to data that says test scores don't improve with smaller class sizes, but there's so much more to educating our students than test scores. Our smaller class sizes allow for more one-on-one time. It keeps students from hiding and falling through the cracks. It's easier to identify their learning and emotional needs. It creates more cohesive class cultures. We can form better relationships with our students. The students are more engaged when there's less students in the classroom. Just like we heard that beautiful presentation, they can't learn when there are 34 kids having conversations in the classroom. We go through the curriculum much faster, and it creates a much less chaotic classroom environment. Shouldn't all these positive outcomes outweigh test scores? The clear answer is yes. And I'm asking the board to swiftly approve a contract that will lower the class sizes for the students of MDSD because our students, all students, especially Title I students, deserve the best. Thank you.
Jane Balch Enlow.
Good evening, trustees. Good evening, Dr. Clark. I look forward to seeing you in my classroom on the 27th. I'm Jane Balshenlow. I teach 7th grade at Sequoia Middle School. I teach AVID ALD 7th grade core. And I'm a Medea board member, and this is my 30th year here in the district. Your funding, you have $182 million that you get to spend however way you want it. And you are the one to direct the funding that will get our students to deserve the best that they should get. As you've heard from previous speakers, how you can spend it is there. The students, the money is there now for PE teachers that you took away for 4th and 5th grade. The money is there for librarians for secondary that you took away. The money is there for healthcare so that you can get us maybe 90% instead of 100%, but something more than what we have now, because when I'm all the way over and all the way down, and I know there's a lot of people like me, or they're stuck at 13 years, and every time healthcare goes up, I take a pay cut, every time. Our students deserve the best with the money that you have. And all I'm asking is that you direct Dr. Clark and his administration to spend the money. We need to start spending the money on what we have now. It's not for, you saved $57 million last year on the backs of our children so that we didn't have the services that you guys, that not you, but that our district is out of compliance on. And you've heard stories tonight. And I'm praying with every fiber of my being that you will listen and actually direct your administration that you have hired to actually do something this year and to actually negotiate in good faith when we have our negotiations so that we can get good teachers that stay in our district. I've been here 30 years. There aren't a lot of us here that can actually say they've been here 30 years. And I've got 2 years and 3/4 left before I retire. And I want to end on a high note, knowing that I work for the best district in the area, that our students have the best services in the area. That's what I'm going for, because our students deserve the best. Thank you.
Carol Martin.
Superintendent and board, I'd like to speak on behalf of my staff tonight. I normally, when Riverview is called to be here, we are here in force, and we are not here in force tonight. I believe it's because we are too exhausted. I am here to speak on the public record about what we are facing at Riverview Middle School. Our current school admin is trying so hard to work with the teachers to strengthen Riverview, but there are huge obstacles to overcome. For the record, we continue to have substitutes without credentials teaching English, ELD, literacy, ALD classes for the 2nd year in a row. We have 2 credentialed math teachers for a school of almost 800 students because we lost 2 math teachers already this year. Half the students, the entire 6th grade, and half the 7th grade have substitutes for math. We continue to test students for special education, but all the classes are maxed and there is no room. This is the 2nd year of overages in our special education program. Currently, we have 8 open FTE positions being covered by substitutes and the 16 teachers on staff who have taken 120% against our union recommendation, but they do that instead of losing their daily prep period or having more subjects taught to our children by non-credentialed substitutes. We also lost our full-time counselor after 1 month because of the stress of the job at Riverview trying to serve so many students. The community of Riverview deserves qualified teachers in every class and to have children taught by teachers who have time to prepare and collaborate. We are constantly reminded that our district stands for equity, but the day-to-day at Riverview tells us completely differently. The students of Bay Point need and deserve better. As a teacher at Riverview for the last 29 years, I have never witnessed such a dire situation. How much more will this vulnerable community have to endure under your leadership Give Riverview the attention and resources we deserve. Thank you.
Vinay Raghavan.
Hi, my name is Vinay Raghavan. I am father of a 5-year-old daughter, Arya Vinay, who is a student of Mount Diablo School District. I'm here to address in front of the board the enrollment issue I am facing for past 2 months. To give you some context, she was part of the intra-district transfer program where she was selected to attend a different school than the resident school, which was Valhalla Elementary School. There were a total of 4 students who were selected, but as I respect the intra-district transfer rules and regulations, according to which up to the 15th day, the transfer can be revoked due to capacity constraints, which is mentioned as 27 students per class. Agree to that. So on August 20, if you all go to page number, sequence 3, which I have numbered the pages, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. You will see it's all the chronological order of all the things I have faced through. But let me give you an overview. Once we received the resentment letter, I tried reaching out to the principal and all the district executives to appeal the things due to the reason of my work constraints and our work regulations. At the same time, her aftercare, which was in the Valhalla school, because we were given the notice of selection on May 26th. So we didn't look for any other alternatives, which was the others. Anyway, coming back to the point, we were given 4 to 5 days to join the next school. During the process of the appeal process, which I was following, I discovered that 2 students out of these 4 intra-district transfers from Valhalla Elementary I discovered 1 student has been allowed to stay back at the Valhalla Elementary School. And from there, I started reaching out to all the executives, principal, papas, and everybody. And there's a chain of email chains, which I have a printout. I can give it further regarding that. Asking what guidelines were followed to keep those 2 students over my student, because she qualifies as per the guidelines we know. It's been a series of emails to all the executives under Mr. Clark administration, including Mr. Clark, and it's just they're assured the guidelines were followed. I asked multiple times what guidelines were followed. I was never given the answer. I'm here to request the board to, because it's a 5-year-old who is asking me, Dad, why was I rejected? It's a 5-year-old kid, and all the teachers are telling they are going above the class limit. That's wondering for me, because this teacher couldn't keep 1 student. And to be honest, on the ground, the teacher didn't know it. It's mostly the principal who is calling the shots. That's my knowledge. And for that, I filed a formal complaint, which is the first page. And I received a response, which was totally unsatisfactory. And I requested back again the request, but I never got an answer. As a father of a 5-year-old who is trying to get into the school district because we moved out here, the response I'm getting from the offices and all, like passing around, not responding to emails. And I've got many phone calls, like you go this, you go there, you go, means they are ready to open any other school except Valhalla in Pleasant Hill. And this looks like a system going against a 5-year-old and his dad, who's just trying to get a good education and equality for all, because we were never given a chance to plead even our case as an appeal. So I request, over the time, so I wrote here, I have email copies of all the email communication but this is the concise form. I didn't want it to go over the limit. So I really appreciate you taking your time to giving the chance. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie Russum.
Good evening. I'm from College Park High School and I am a campus supervisor. I'm here on behalf of the campus supervisors and also the teachers and staff and students. On September 28th, my coworker was attacked by a student, hit multiple times. That student is also back on campus as of the 16th of this month. My coworker is not back on campus. My coworker has not received a phone call asking if she's okay. No concern whatsoever from the district. A employee of over 20 years of this district. Yet the student who attacked her is back on campus. What kind of example is that showing to the other kids that they can abuse a staff member, an employee of the district, and then let back on that exact same campus? Yet the employee is not there. And we are short-staffed. My question is, when are the kids going to be held responsible? Why is that student not put at the other 5 high schools that we have that can accommodate her? Where's the support for the staff, the employees of this school district? We have none. That's all. Thank you.
This comment card says 8.2. It's Brett Hopt. Is it for? Oh, okay, cool.
Good evening, Dr. Clark, board members. This is my first time here. I'm a third-year educator in the district, and I teach just at Wren Avenue, just down the road. And I am very fortunate, and it's been one of the most proud moments of my life to be able to live in the same school zone that I teach in. I live in the Wren district. I teach at Wren, and it overjoys me every day to be able to go around and see my students outside of school, see them in the community. And I wanted to encourage you today, one of the articles that is being opened in the bargaining is about community schools. And I know that the district has previously had a grant to investigate the community schools and the efficacy of that. And I know that you'll hear a lot more from me and the union about this over the coming months, and certainly from the bargaining team and whatnot. But one of the reasons why, and if you don't know exactly, I'm sure you do, but to clarify, community schools being where schools are open to our families and our students for a variety of services that are that extend beyond just teaching. It's a real holistic approach to how schools should be run. And it really brings the community together. It brings parents and teachers and all community stakeholders together in a way that is so the best schools that I have seen do this without it having been named. But I know as we move forward as a district, the state continuing to give money to districts, quite a large sum of money to districts that adopt a community schools grant. I know the Oakland Unified School District just did this as part of their new contract. I would want to encourage the board members, Dr. Clark, all of the administrators, to consider the pathway towards community schools where we can have pride in our communities, where we can give students every ounce of everything they and their whole family deserve, to not only build up the academic skills of the child, but to really grow, all of us intertwine in a way that makes us all stronger together. I know that you've been hearing the refrain again and again that our students deserve the best. This is one of the pathways forward for that. And I so much appreciate you taking the time. I have such a passion for this district, and I appreciate you all and the opportunity that is ahead of you to make a generational change in the way that we conduct our schools and what we can do for our students. Thank you so much.
All right. So it looks like we should be able to move on to 9.0 communications, district organizations, regular board meetings. A single spokesperson of each recognized district organization may make a brief presentation. Items are limited to those which are informational. Okay. Julia Jameson.
Good evening, President Nzewi, wherever you are, Vice President McFerrin, Trustees Count, Mayo, Student Trustee Barrios, and Dr. Clark. My name is Julia Jameson, and I am here in my capacity as Medea's bargaining chair on this Sunshine meeting. So last meeting, I told you that we are the service that you provide. Your educators are the service that you provide to the students of this district. And what you just heard in public comment is a number of my colleagues tell you what we need in order to do our job. And that's what I'd like to encourage you to think of instead of thinking of Medea's demands. We're telling you what we need in order to serve students. Here are some of the things that my colleagues eloquently told you that we need. We need secondary librarians. At the last board meeting during his presentation, Dr. Clark was discussing some pictures of the professional development and pointed out the beautifully remodeled library at Mount Diablo High School, which is a wonderful space, thank you. But the best part of that library is Jean Malinowski, our credentialed teacher librarian, who is paid for through site funds, because we understand that a library isn't a library when students can't check out books because there's no credentialed teacher librarian. A library isn't a library when there isn't someone to teach students how to use information, how to research, and all the other wonderful skills that a credentialed teacher librarian provides. You heard my colleagues say that we need schedules for some of our specials teachers, like our elementary general music teachers, that allow them not only to provide preparation time for other teachers, but to develop programs. An elementary music class that only involves singing in class with each other once a week or twice a week, sorry, I'm secondary, I don't know the schedule, is not a music program. And when you look at schools like Mount Diablo High that have no music program anymore, that's a generational loss of music from the lack of performance opportunity at elementary school to a complete absence of any performance by the time they get to high school. My colleagues said that we need a restoration of 4th and 5th grade PE. I've heard many elementary school teachers say when 4th and 5th grade PE was eliminated and that preparation time was added back through the enrichment and support teachers, which provide wonderful STEM instruction, the problem to elementary or to 4th and 5th grade classroom teachers is that something was put back on their plates and nothing was removed. So teachers have the same amount of time and now need to instruct one more subject. Because the enrichment and support is exactly that, it's enrichment. It's not something that's part of the core curriculum that elementary teachers are responsible for ensuring their students receive. We need even more contribution to healthcare. And I thank you again for the district's commitment to covering the increase in health care costs for next year. But when our competitor districts are offering 100% medical benefit coverage, we know that more can be done. And we know that in order to retain our teachers and attract new educators, the district needs to find a way to do more on medical benefit contribution. And the most heartbreaking thing that you've heard that we need is we need smaller class sizes to allow students access to their classrooms and a qualified educator in every classroom. Mount Diablo High is still functioning with science instruction through Elevate K-12, which leaves a lot to be desired. And we are the service that you provide. If we're not there, we're not providing the service. There is a teacher shortage. It is not an easy problem to solve. But the way you attract and retain qualified educators for every position is to enhance the experience of working for your district. Provide a competitive salary, provide competitive fringe benefits, provide environments where teachers want to work because they feel that they are valued and respected by their employer. This is where I'd like to talk about some of the new articles involved in Medea's Sunshine Letter. When Dr. Rubio presented the district Sunshine at the last meeting, the board had some questions and Dr. Rubio had the opportunity to answer. I've been waiting for 2 weeks and now I'd like to give you my answers. One of the questions was, how long would it take to negotiate all of those articles? Yeah, our Sunshine proposal involves opening a lot of articles, but the answer is hard to give because it really depends on what the content of those proposals is. For example, I can think of one just off the top of my head where we proposed opening an article to make one change to language from a vague phrase to a more specific phrase that we think would be easier for both the district and the union to understand. If that's not something the district objects to, that is a 30-second change. Now, is every article that situation? No, absolutely not, especially the new articles. But it would be very hard to estimate how long a bargain on all those articles would take until there are actual proposals that show the content and the extent of those changes. The other question was a version of, why do these articles belong in a teacher's contract? Don't we have board policy about some of these things? Well, in some cases, yes, the board does have policies that address issues such as racial justice, such as bullying and harassment. But board policies are created by the school board. And there is no requirement that anyone other than the school board participates in the creation of those policies. Whereas bargaining is a collaborative process that gives educators the opportunity to give their input into a policy with an ongoing commitment. We think the board makes some pretty good policies. We think the board has some policies that we're happy to support. But we would also like the opportunity for our voices to be heard in some issues that our members have said are very important to them. Secondly, board policy can change. And again, we are pretty happy with a lot of board policies right now. We think there are some great board policies with our current board, and we think we have many areas of agreement on policy. However, you all are elected officials, and you're not always going to be our trustees. You may be our trustees for a very long while. Some of you may not be our trustees for next term, depending on the decisions that you make. But we have seen, especially in the last election, some very dramatic and significant changes to the composition of school boards in our state, not so much in our area, but in other places, that could lead to some dramatic changes in board policies. Our collective bargaining agreement cannot be changed at the whim of school board trustees who do not share our interests. It protects our members and our students when we are involved in the process and when our agreement is required to change things. Furthermore, there's no formal recourse for an educator who notices that a board policy is being violated. If an educator is concerned that, for example, their site administration or possibly even district administration is not conforming to a board policy, there isn't really anything formally that is laid out for us to do, which is not the case for a violation of our collective bargaining agreement. Violations of the collective bargaining agreement are subject to the grievance procedure, which is a clear, formal procedure with established steps. Everybody knows how that grievance has to shake out, as opposed to some other process that is not defined. So those are some reasons that we think it's valuable to have some of these new articles in our contract. In addition, Brett talked about community schools. So there is a huge push in the state of California, supported by billions of dollars of funding from the state for community schools. Thus far, Mount Diablo hasn't really taken advantage of those funds. And as educators, we think that that is an oversight. We would like to see the best for our students through what community schools could bring. And so our ask to negotiate this permissive subject of bargaining, meaning that we can ask to bargain it, not that it's mandated by law. We think using this, bringing this permissive subject of bargaining to the bargaining table is the best way to ensure that our district takes advantage of opportunities like community school funding now and in the future. We are the service you provide. We're telling you what we need in order to serve our students. Please listen, and we look forward to working collaboratively with the district's team when we meet them at the table on Friday. Thank you.
All right. So next up is 10.0 recognitions and resolutions. Dr. Clark.
Thank you, Madam President. We are going to bring a resolution forward that recognizes Native American Heritage Month. So whereas this country was home to generations of Native people long before the arrival of European explorers, and each of these tribes had a unique and vibrant culture, as well as a system of social order. And whereas each tribe has celebrated heroes of their own in government, sports, visual and performing arts, literature, engineering, medicine, education, and environmental science. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Mount Diablo Unified School District proclaims the month of November as Native American Heritage Month and encourages all schools to commemorate this occasion with appropriate instructional materials, and be it further resolved that this resolution be distributed to all schools within the district. Madam Vice President, this item is now in the hands of the board.
Madam Vice President, I move to approve Resolution 2324-25 in recognizing November 2023 Native American Heritage Month.
Second.
Trustee Barrios.
Yes.
Trustee Cowan,
Yes.
President Nzewi,
Yes.
and Trustee Mayo.
Yes.
And I also vote yes. And that motion passes. So 11.1, review and potential approval of certificated personnel appointment.
Yep, and we have Mr. Sheehy who's going to take this next item.
So we're excited the Human Resources Department is bringing forward the board's review and potential approval, the appointment of Joseph Bruno as elementary principal with a site to be determined later for the 24-25 school year. Joe has taught 4th and 5th grade for 13 years in Pittsburgh Unified School District and served the MDUSD community as an elementary vice principal for 4 years at Mount Diablo Elementary and Delta View Elementary. Joe holds a bachelor's degree in liberal studies and a master's degree in education. Joe lives in Oakley with his wife Joshara and a kindergarten teacher, his sons Gio and Jaden, who attend a dual immersion elementary school, and his 2 wacky Siberian Huskies. One of Joe's favorite hobbies to this day is to collect and build unique Lego sets. With that, I leave this appointment in the hands of the board.
Madam President, I move the board approve the appointment of Joseph Bruno as a elementary school principal, regrettably for the 24-25 school year.
I'll second that.
Trustee Barrios,
Yes.
Trustee Count,
Yes.
President Nzewi,
Yes.
and Trustee Mayo.
Yes.
And I vote yes. We're excited to have you next school year.
Good evening, Dr. Clark, board trustees, and the MDSD community. I am proud and honored and thrilled to be returning to Mount Diablo Unified. Tonight, I have my family, some of my bestest friends, some former colleagues, and now current colleagues again. So I am thrilled to continue serving our scholars, the community, and all of our stakeholders. So I'm thrilled to be returning. Thank you so much.
You guys can now escape as well. So, yes. Yeah, congratulations.
Welcome. So we're at 12.1 presentation on collected data and recommendations to improve services to refugee and immigrant youth.
Welcome. You don't waste any time. I was going to introduce you, but you go ahead and take it. We're thrilled to have you and looking forward to the presentation.
Thank you. Good evening. There was a lot of traffic, so I'm glad I made it. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Kajal Shahali. I'm the Senior Youth Program Manager with Refugee and Immigrant Transitions. I believe this is the clicker. Is that right? Okay, perfect. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Just a little bit about Refugee and Immigrant Transitions. We are a community-based organization located in Oakland with programming in Oakland, California, as well as San Francisco, and a small satellite program in South Bay and San Jose. We've been around for quite a while doing community-based work. Our mission is to really welcome and partner with people who have sought refuge and employing strength-based educational approaches and community support so that they may thrive in our shared communities. So we work with a lot of newcomer families and we partner with them to serve the community. Our program areas fall under three very core categories. We provide education programming for adult and youth newcomers. As you can see, we do home-based and virtual tutoring and mentorship. We do school-based programming in 3 high schools, including Oakland Fremont High School, which is in East Oakland, San Francisco International High School, as well as Oakland International High School. We have English, vocational, and citizenship classes for many newcomer adults, as well as women initiatives in terms of wellness and case management. We also do family engagement. We provide a lot of case management, wellness programming, workshops, and support groups for newcomer families. And we also do a lot of community leadership work, which hopefully will come handy when we talk further in the presentation. We do paid internships for community members, and we connect and uplift them so that they can be and have a say actually in sort of their transition to life in the United States. We do strengths-based programming. So we believe that our work with the community is a two-way street. We are learning from the community as they learn from us. So we just want to put it out there. I know there's a whole lot of definition there, but that's the approach that we take. I think of us as holding a little flower where the center of our work is the community. And then we do a whole lot of community programming and a whole lot of advocacy around it, which kind of includes working with the districts and working with the state and the government agencies and foundations so that we hold it all together, this delicate flower, and partner up with them. What are we doing here? Well, I had the honor and privilege of working with you all since 2021. In fact, when Kabul sadly fell to the hands of Taliban, and our organization partnered up with a lot of resettlement agents, refugee resettlement agencies, to talk with the school districts about what is going on and the potential of a lot of Afghan newcomer students coming to your districts. I got to work with some of you directly. I sat in meetings, and then I was brought on to work directly in some of your high schools and sort of observe what is going on. We have a strength-based approach. So we looked at what you're doing great and where are some of the things that can be improved and can be better. I think it's important to say that I am personally someone who has done this work with school districts for a decade, a little bit more. And, I'm there with the families on the ground. I'm there with them at the time of enrollment. I help them sort of go to their first day of school. I answer the phone calls when the family calls me and says, I don't know what this thing is that you just brought. I don't know. The school called me about this thing and I don't know what it is about. I speak Farsi. I'm originally from Iran, so I can actually do this with a lot of Afghan families. I would be able to communicate with them. So it was a good, opportunity to sit and see what's going on, and then what is it that we can recommend to do better. Few things that I want to make sure everybody I touch on. When we say newcomer students, I want to just make sure we know the definition. Obviously, it's an umbrella term for foreign-born students. It's a big spectrum of students. I wish that I could work with all newcomer students, but the main categories that I really want to mention here are those students who are in a very vulnerable situation, which actually will include asylees, refugees, unaccompanied youth, undocumented youth, and students with migratory status. That is not to say that all other immigrant families don't need the support. It's just that these are the specific vulnerable populations that we work with and we had our focus on. In California, 1 in 40 student is a newcomer student, considered a newcomer students. The higher concentrations are in Los Angeles, San Diego, Orange County, Santa Clara County, and your neighboring county, Alameda County. And 67% of these students, newcomer students, are considered socioeconomically disadvantaged. In DUSD, we found that there are currently 1,303 newcomer students, which means they have been here 3 years or less. The top languages in this district are Spanish, Dari or Farsi, depending on who's put it down, Pashto from Afghanistan as well, Russian and Arabic. And the top birth countries are Afghanistan, Mexico, El Salvador, Peru, and Guatemala. I want to keep this for everybody on there, just because I think it's important. And I know that we don't ask the documentation of the students, but I think it's important to kind of highlight these immigration categories because they really determine what the needs of the families are, what are some of their experiences from the countries that they come from, and what are their, honestly, immigration trajectories and the stressors that they have on a daily basis. Number one, refugees often have access to social services and benefits. They're on a pathway to citizenship. However, their transition into life in the US is short and quick, and they have to really find a job. So their stressors in the first 3 months they arrive is super high. So something to keep in mind. Asylum seekers are, people maybe who have come from the border, maybe they sought asylum after entering in the US. They are going through immigration proceedings, which has its own complications and difficulties, a lot of stressors there. And oftentimes they actually don't have access to benefits unless they get their asylum. So as you can imagine, life can be really stressful if you can't find a job or if you can't have a food stamp, access to food stamp or other social benefits. Afghan SIVs or special immigrant visa holders and parolees, as you can imagine, come from a very difficult few years. Some SIVs have documentation to stay. Their benefits are very similar to refugees, but unfortunately their stressors are very similar to refugees as well. And parolees unfortunately have a temporary status, which means that after 2 years, now it has gotten renewed, but after another 2 years, they have to go through the asylum proceedings. So the stressor of whether or not in 2 years they will be here is extremely difficult and high. Unaccompanied minors, which your district has many, are students that oftentimes have been apprehended at the border when trying to cross the southern border. At the time of apprehension, then they have lived in shelters and have been reunited either with a family member or a foster care system to take care of them, and they are going through the asylum proceedings. Life for these kids are extremely difficult and stressful, and you have many, I reiterate, you have many of them in this district. And other immigration status, which we don't want to ignore, but clearly have its own stressors as well. So just kind of keep those immigration statuses in mind. Please remember that our students are resilient, they're resourceful, they're determined, they are committed to their communities and they are hopeful and with a lot of dreams. The core of what I have found in my work in school districts is oftentimes we're trying to balance the ideas of assimilation and integration. A lot of the times our thoughts are these students have to come here, they have to learn English, and they have to sometimes forget at the expense of forgetting their own language. They have to just kind of figure out how to be an American. Whereas integration often means, well, what is it that they bring? What is their language? How can be part of this community and preserve their culture and their skills and their strengths? So I always tell people a little bit of curiosity and cultural humility will make a good case for creative solutions to working with newcomer students. What does that mean? I will tell you a little bit when I talk about it in our recommendations. So based on that, what we observed when we started working with Mount Diablo Unified School District is that there's a lot of allies. A lot of schools have awesome, dedicated people who want to do this work and make schools a better place for our newcomer students, but there are gaps. On a district level, the enrollment process is quite complicated and unwelcoming for newcomer students. A lot of newcomer students wait a really long time for enrollment, and for families who speak Indigenous languages and maybe they have no literacy background, this is extremely a difficult process. Your schools are big and busy. There's a lot of overflow that happens, and with that comes the issue of transportation, which a lot of our community members don't have access to because they don't have cars, or maybe they can't get a driver's license, or maybe they're too new to the country to navigate that system. And every school has a little bit of support. So it's not that there isn't any, it's just that the systems of support are disintegrated. So everybody's kind of doing their own thing in silos rather than a comprehensive sort of support that is coming from a district level. School site was a little bit more complicated. We observed that a lot of classrooms, I think a teacher here actually mentioned that, it needs a lot of bilingual support for some of our newcomer students. Counselors oftentimes have a really hard time trying to figure out the transcript situation, particularly for high school students. Maybe a student came, often newcomer students don't come with their transcript. So kind of keep that in mind, that translating the transcript, what credit should be there, is sometimes difficult for our counselors. There's a need for targeted support specifically for students with limited and interrupted formal education. A lot of unaccompanied minors fall into this group, and maybe they haven't gone to school since 3rd grade. Maybe they were in school, a war broke out, and they were out of school for 3 years. So that there's a need for a targeted support for those students. There's a lot of needs for restorative practices before and after incidents that happens amongst groups of students, and if there is a group conflict. And when I say restorative practices before and after, meaning we want to do some preventative stuff so that it doesn't lead to groups having a conflict with one another, but also what are some of the restorative practices we can do at the school level after an incident happens or a behavior is observed. And there's also a need for targeted and community-centered parent and caregiver engagement, which I will delve into in a little bit further. In a classroom level, again, we saw a need for language support and aid in the classrooms, and especially for ELD cohorts, your teachers are just working so hard. And there's a need for restorative practices in the classrooms as well, and a need for targeted after school peer leadership and well-being programming for newcomer students, because their needs oftentimes are very specific and based on their experiences and their journeys. So I can do a whole nother training on an information session on each of these, but I want you to kind of keep this in mind in a larger picture. We are recommending this with some curiosity and cultural humility. And some of them, good news, is that has been achieved, which is a really good thing. We would love to help secure funding for newcomer students in this district. And we have done so by bringing in CalNew grant from the state of California, which some of your staff are working really hard to preserve and, make it worthwhile. So consider that done, which is great. We wanted to hire a newcomer student point of contact, so a social worker and a CWA at the district level to help us do this work, which a lot of newcomer-friendly districts have that point of contact. We did that too. We have 2 of them now working at the district, Estrella, and if I'm not mistaken, Lorena, and they both are bilingual staff. We also are encouraging everyone at a district level to observe welcoming districts and school models, which I'm happy to share that it has been done on a district level. Many of your staff actually came to Oakland Unified School District and worked with the newcomer program there and learned a lot from the district. And we're hoping to do this with Fremont High School newcomer program for some of the schools that are highly impacted in this district so that they can do a collaboration with one another. We are recommending to build a comprehensive list of community resources and connect to communities of support for newcomer students. We have a lovely gentleman from a resettlement agency here who would like to do that. So I invited him over. So building those connections and relationships are super important, and we invite you to do it with a goal and a target to serve newcomer students. To train school administrators, CWAs, office staff, registrars, counselors, and parent liaisons on some of the immigration experiences we just talked about, and how to be more welcoming based on those experiences, and to also revisit enrollment centers' welcoming protocols and practices. Simple things like putting up a sign in different languages, taking the lunch hour in different times so that parents can come in and get served because they're taking time off from work. So those are our short-term recommendations. Long-term, we are hoping to invite you all to get a little creative. Please partner up with community-based organizations or maybe ask us on how to be creative about hiring staff or hiring or bringing on onboarding volunteers so that they can be in the classroom and providing support for teachers, providing bilingual or trilingual case management support at your district. Hiring newcomer specific after school support, whether it's a program or staff who are focused on doing that work in specific schools. Hiring and creating actually newcomer youth and community-based leadership pathways, meaning identifying newcomer students who are in a good academic standing, who want to help their community, bringing them on as peer tutors, peer leaders to help their friends in their schools. Those need intentional programming. Identify and community building spaces and events, celebrating people's heritage, their languages, their traditions as much as possible, particularly in impacted high schools, and build a SLIFE program. Right now, I have to give a shout out because your staff actually have piloted this program at Olympic High School. Thank you. At Olympic High School. So there is actually a SLIFE program happening right now. And I believe Dr. Clark, maybe you visited it, which is great. Long-term goal, the hope is you would be able to do this in many of the high schools that are impacted. So the kids are not having to go to Olympic High School if they need that support, but in fact, they have it in their respective high schools. And also building a district-wide communities of practice for administrators and teachers working with newcomer students, meaning they get together quarterly or monthly or however many times a year so that they can learn from each other's best practices and then learn from larger groups that are out there doing the work. And lastly, we recommend revisiting your ELAC meetings and goals because those are great places to invite families and community members to be engaged as much as possible and to serve back their communities, and also district-wide welcoming protocols and practices so that everybody's not doing the work in silos, but actually sort of together. I invite you all to walk away from this information session just thinking about whether if you're a teacher, you're an administrator, you're a board member, just looking and thinking about what resources do you individually or collectively need in order to create these welcoming spaces at your schools. This presentation is done. And again, I can do a whole lot of talking on each of the bullet points. I have put some resources on there with links on this presentation as well from a state level, federal level, local and community level that you have access to, models and programs, as well as books and research that you can have access to if you want to do this work with us together at Mount Diablo Unified School District. Thank you for your time. And yeah, nice to meet you all. Any questions?
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, okay. I was maybe my time is up. I have to go. How can I?
Questions, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yes, please.
First of all, thank you so much. It's been incredible to see how much our district has achieved with incredible help from you and your organization. I just don't know how we would have made the strides that we had without you. So thank you so much for that. And I just want to also appreciate that not only did you come in and help with some specific pieces, but the idea of taking that larger view and helping us to take the larger view of what is the big picture plan, what is the long-term plan of where we really want to get as a district, because our population is changing. You know, we did not have this population not too long ago. And so it's something that we need to learn from organizations like yours and other districts that have had it for a longer time, and figure out what are those best practices instead of trying to, reinvent the wheel ourselves all by ourselves. So I just really want to appreciate that.
Thank you. And thank you for your partnership. It's been great.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really, and I think the observing what the other school sites are doing is incredible. So I appreciated being able to come out to Oakland. And we'd love to hear when you're organizing another visit out to Fremont. I would just recommend anyone who can go to be able to see it in person, because then you start to get more of a sense of where we're going. I just wanted to ask, when you talk about restorative practices that are needed, that's kind of a very general term that I've heard in a lot of different places. And we have many different types of restorative practices already in our district, but is there a particular kind of restorative practice that you're looking for, or a particular group that does that training that you would recommend?
There are. In fact, I can send you all a list of organizations that are doing that work in Oakland that are actually interested in doing that work in other areas. I think the one thing I have to say about the restorative practices is that When you work with newcomer students, I feel like oftentimes groups are pinned against one another because there's a lack of resources in a variety of ways. And there is also not that many spaces where those students from different groups get to know one another and learn from each other, who they are, what their cultural practices are, what is it that they've learned in their home countries, and have those conversations. And sometimes this is made more difficult if the administration or the teacher in the classroom is not also familiar with their own biases and their own ways of looking at newcomer students, particularly from particular countries and cultures. So all of that together exasperates any kind of situation. Maybe two teenagers just had a fight over something silly because teenagers have that fight, but then it becomes this thing that there is one group against one another. So I think what we say about restorative practices is how much before an incident are we creating spaces where the students get to know each other, the staff are getting to know the students, their backgrounds, they're learning from one another. And then if an incident happens, how much are we bringing our own biases? How much the kids are bringing their biases against one another into the picture? So I think that's what I don't know if that answered your question, but that's really what we hope to do, is create spaces where we don't even get to a place where we have to think, oh, this group is against this particular group, if that makes sense.
No, I think that's a really good point. I mean, it's something that I've seen, like within the PTA at one of the schools, the parent group leaders just this year were realizing that they'd made assumptions about each other. Like, oh, I thought you were Mexican just like me, but actually you're Peruvian. Wow, I didn't know that,
Yeah. Yeah.
So sometimes it can happen even amongst the adults who already feel like they know each other, but they actually didn't know these things about each other.
100. And just to add to that, there was an incident where I came and mediated a conflict between two different groups, and one group thought everybody in that group is Mexican, and then one group thought, well, all people from that group, is hitting women. And you had to just sort of hold that space where they talked to each other about their assumptions. And then each student, to give them credit, cleared it up pretty well for the other group with love and kindness. So how much of those spaces are we creating before anything happens? Is the restorative practice we hope for.
I just want to thank you for your support. I mean, we have a very active EL department who I know you've worked with, but the responsibility shouldn't fall squarely on their shoulders. This really needs to be spread out throughout all of our campuses and whatnot. So we'll use your presentation to continue to provide professional development, and hopefully there's continuous opportunities for us to continue this partnership.
Absolutely. And we would love that. And I work with Catherine and Amy on a weekly basis. We talk to each other. So shout out to them. They're amazing. And I encourage all of you to be creative. Think of partnering up. If it's too hard or too complicated and it's not something this district can resolve, please partner up, not just with us. Tell us who you're looking for and we'll tell you who to partner up with, so that you can not be alone in this task.
Thank you so much.
I just want to say that brings to mind for me, I love what you were saying about newcomer youth community leadership pathways, because one of the needs we have, right, is like was said earlier tonight, it's hard to find someone who speaks Dari or Farsi, right, to have them placed in all of our schools. And it's hard for newcomers to get through the hiring hurdles to be able to be hired for our district. But we have youth already in our schools that can fill some of those really key roles, and they're ready to move into these leadership positions. So if I would be really interested in that piece, and how your organization might be able to help us with that. And like, I know your organization does run after school programs at some other districts.
Yes.
So like, what would it take to bring that here? I think there's a lot of really important pieces of recommendations here that I'm excited about. So
And I look forward to talking to you about all of those in detail. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you so much. So we have public comment on
We're gonna do the presentation.
we're going to do the
first, yeah.
presentation first. Okay.
So, so it was requested by this board that we do a staff presentation on the PLA process and what that entails and sort of how it impacts our district and where we are. And so we have Mr. Alvarado, who will be conducting that presentation, and then afterwards we'll open it up. We can open it up for public comments, and then if the board has questions, you can direct them to Mr. Alvarado at that time. Great. So
Thank
Mr.
you. Good
Alvarado.
evening, members of the board. It's Cesar Alvarado. I'm General Counsel for the Mount Diablo Unified School District. And what you're about to hear is actually a presentation that is 15 years in the making. That was how long ago the Mount Diablo Unified School District Board, our trustees, had discussions and considered the issue of a project labor agreement, or PLA. It was back in 2006, I think it was the last time the issue was addressed. So I think we're bringing it back today. Generally, what we like to do is, number one, have a little bit of an overview discussion of what the PLA or project labor agreements are and what the potential pros and cons of having one may be. Now, thereafter, I'd like to discuss the specific directions, the specific action that was taken by the board back then, because I think it informs us and it gives us a direction going forward. And I also like to bring that issue later on to the board directly for the board to consider whether, number one, whether the Mount Diablo Unified School District should adopt a project labor agreement, and number two, for the board to give us direction as to the parameters of what that may look like going forward. We're not going to be discussing the specifics of negotiation, but we would like to get some parameters because the direction that we have is a little bit dated. So with that in mind, so a project labor agreement is a pre-hired collective bargaining agreement. It is between the district and the labor unions. It is designed to give it is designed to govern the relationship between the contractors that may work in district projects and their employees. So what it does is it creates a scheme, it creates a framework that binds all contractors that bid and that are approved to do any of the work or on any of the projects that are subject to the PLA. That framework essentially binds that contractor in terms of relationships where collective bargaining agreement, collective bargaining relationships, and potentially as well as what the salaries may be involved. So while it is an agreement between the district and the labor unions, it affects future contractors who may bid on projects. PLAs are not required by California law, although they have been adopted by a number of public agencies. In essence, I would say they are permitted. They are allowed by California law, provided that there are certain factors that are met in all PLAs. So among those factors are the need to allow non-union labor, non-union contractors to bid on the projects, as well as to make a provision so that there is a mechanism by which strikes are avoided and that there are no labor stoppages as part of the agreement. Now, there are some stated benefits of what a PLA will do for the district, and the benefits may include among them long-term project stability. Because they address labor issues, they establish cost standards, they may prevent costly shutdowns caused by labor disputes. There, you can also incorporate issues regarding training and advancement. For example, you can ask for clauses that would allow for training and apprenticeship and increase access of Mount Diablo Unified School District graduates, for example, in working in district projects. It provides a structure that you can utilize then and build upon to try to build a relationship with the labor unions, such that, for example, you can utilize, they can provide their expertise in working with our students as they are building their careers. They can create a mechanism by which there are no work disruptions, this is actually a requirement, and any disputes are instead mediated or resolved by a mutual administrator. These are any disputes between the labor force and the contractors. There may also be some costs that are associated with a PLA. One of them may be increasing construction costs because it prioritizes union contractors and may inhibit competition. There may also be an issue as to exclusion of non-union workers from Mount Diablo Unified School District projects. So there is an argument that it takes away the workers' right to choose representation and to pay and also forces them to pay associated dues and benefits and so forth to the union, which they otherwise would choose not to do. And finally, that they may be unnecessary. They may be unnecessary because in California, there is, number one, there is a requirement that all contractors bids are subject to a rigorous screening process. And number two, because California is a prevailing wage state, which requires that all work in public agencies be paid at the prevailing rates, which are typically based on collective bargaining agreements. So they're typically union wages. So the argument then that it becomes necessary and that in fact, labor stoppages and strikes are very seldom seen in public projects because of that. Now, there is a tendency, I think, it's very clear that a lot of public agencies have moved on towards adopting one form or another of PLAs or project labor agreements. These are our neighbors who have that. And I think we can add Mount Diablo Unified School District to that list as well, because we actually, the board actually adopted a project labor agreement back in 2003. And so I'd like to discuss that a little bit of the history and where we left off from 15 years ago to now. So back in 2004 or thereabouts, the board decided to create a committee or a subcommittee. It's not clear, but in any event, there was a committee created where there was a discussion as to whether the Mount Diablo should adopt a project labor agreement. What the committee recommended and what the board ultimately adopted was a pilot program. Now, the pilot program that was passed, this was back in May 10, 2005, was that Mount Diablo would enter into a limited PLA or project labor agreement with our union partners, and that it would incorporate one single project. That was a project that would be up to $1 million or at least $1 million in value. That would be subject to this agreement. The project, I believe, was actually the construction of multiple classrooms at a particular school. There were negotiations that happened as a result of that with the labor unions. There were a number of issues that were discussed. There were concerns raised as to access to non-union employees to Mount Diablo projects. I can tell you from what I've uncovered that it was a heavily contested and it became a bit of there was a lot of public opinion in favor and against it. And there was even some potential incidents that happened back then. But in any event, a PLA was agreed upon and it was entered upon, it was actually executed and proceeded. So back in 2006, after that project was completed, the Mount Diablo Board of Education then issued another mandate on that issue. Basically, the board at that time accepted the project as completed and gave instructions to then general counsel and staff. The instructions were for the general counsel to enter into a broader project labor agreement with the labor unions. The specific instructions were the following. The Board of Education directs staff to negotiate a project labor agreement with the Building Trades of Contra Costa that will be 1 year in length and cover all construction projects in the school district that reach an estimated threshold of $2 million. Those were the specific instructions that were given. Now, time passed, an actual agreement was not reached, and I think that it's unclear exactly what happened. It may have been that was 5 or 6 superintendents ago. There was a change in staff. There was probably a change in council. And so that agreement was never actually either completed or at least it was not executed. And it never took effect. It never went into effect as far as I can figure out. Now, but that is the last instructions from the board to do that into that agreement for 1 year for an estimated threshold of $2 million. Now, forward that to 2019, I believe, or 2020, actually, when council received instructions from the then superintendent to re-engage and to restart the process of negotiating a potential project labor agreement with our labor partners. Now, the issues that arose at that point in which no agreement was, there was actually, there was never a consensus reached on issues regarding threshold, issues potentially regarding the source of the funding, as well as issues regarding the length of the agreement. Nevertheless, given that our last marching orders, so to speak, were 1 year and $2 million threshold, and given the fact that, of course, that it's 16 years ago, we are now bringing this item to the board as an informational item only at this point, because we will be bringing in a future meeting, in the next meeting likely, this item back to the board for the board to make a final determination or to upgrade or to update its instructions as to one, whether in fact Mount Diablo Unified School District should pursue a project labor agreement, and number two, what the parameters for that, to provide us parameters for us to proceed with actual negotiations on it. And then again, to reopen negotiations, and then hopefully to finalize it within the next few months. And then if the board elects to do so, and then for the board to ultimately determine whether, whether it will adopt it or not. So that's where we are right now. Again, today it's just an informational item, but it is a necessary step in order for us to proceed going forward, in order for us to actually, whether for the board to make a final decision on the matter.
Mr. Alvarado, should we take public
Yeah,
comment
let's do the
before?
public comments now, and then we can do questions.
I'm sorry, was there also a presentation by the building trades that was happening tonight? That was my understanding. Trustee President Nzewi, would you like to explain the plan?
Yeah, I invited the building trades to, sorry, my screen changed. I thought I did something, but I didn't, to just present what they understand of a PLA very briefly.
Thank you, Board Member Nzewi. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you. I have some specific questions here, and I'd like to take just a brief moment to kind of give our take on the history, the back history of this process. Back in,
I'm sorry, before you get started, you don't have a presentation, right?
I don't know, I do not have,
all right.
yeah, so
You have just oral. We got you.
I think we're all about done
Yeah.
with presentations.
All right.
tonight, so I'm just doing everybody a favor here. Back in 2019, I met with Chancellor Meyer, and she said to me, Bill, we need your support on the bond measure. And I said, will you put together and promote a PLA? And she said, absolutely, I will. And you got our support, and our votes were critical in your getting to the necessary margin that you needed to get to. That's just a fact. Here we are 4.5 years later, and we're still waiting for that PLA. We kept our end of the bargain. We're asking you to continue with sincerity and honesty and good faith bargaining to own up to your part of that as well. We started negotiations, and I must say to let the board members know that I think Cesar has been professional and courteous, and we've tried to get beyond some things, but there were just some hurdles that seemed to be, I don't know if I'd characterize them as Mount Everest, but they're steep. And this is why we're here today, to hopefully get direction that you will give to staff somewhere, if not tonight, then at the next meeting, to say, this is how we want you to proceed. Just for the record, when it comes to diversity and equity, there is nobody out there in the marketplace that plays a stronger role than unions do. Every person that comes out of a building trades union, every person, doesn't matter their gender, their ethnicity, their religion, when they graduate from the apprentice program, they all get paid the same amount of money. and they get paid living wages and benefits so they can live in your community. And that's why our votes matter, because we live in your communities. We can afford to. The non-union people, frankly, they don't. They just can't. So they're not spending their money in your county and in your school district. They're spending it in Stockton and Fresno and Reno and Tonopah, Nevada, and who knows where else. And so we're here today. Oh, by the way, one other little fact, and I'll get into answering the questions from Board Member Nzewe. We're about 35,000 men and women in the building trades in Contra Costa, and 65% of that are men and women of color and indigenous people. So show me another industry that not only talks the talk, but walks the walk in that fashion. I mean, we do what everybody else is trying to get to, which is equity and diversity and fairness. So the questions that I was asked by Board Member Nzewe, the first one is, why are you asking for $1 million threshold? And, you know, as I look up there, and there's no offense intended, but I'm looking up there and I don't see any construction hands up there. So I'm assuming that the majority of you have not worked construction. And so what I'm sharing with you is something that we found out in construction. It's just the realities of the construction world. There is a breaking point when you bring contractors in. And if you take a small mid-sized contractor and you try and shoehorn them into a $1 million or more deal, the percentage is very high that they're going to roll over and go belly up. And you say, why is that? Well, here's the reasons why. Because first up, they have to have bonding. I don't know if any of you have ever been bonded, but when you get bonded in construction, you know what you're putting up? Your house, all your assets, your cars, your vacation homes, and you can lose all of that in that bonding process. So not to mention the workers' comp, they're kind of the microscope up your backside, making sure that you got the right amount of workers' comp because it's prevailing wage and all that sort of thing. So why is that critical? Well, one, it costs a ton of money, and a lot of the contractors just flat out can't qualify. But there's something else that happens in construction. It's called slow pay, and it just happens. So if you don't have a reservoir, and pretty good chunk reservoir, when it comes time to pay your employees and to pay them their benefits, you don't have a choice. You can't say, hey, trust me, next Tuesday, I'm good for it. No, you pay them on Thursday, and that's the deal. At 3:30, check in hand right here. And same with the benefits, and they go to ERISA trust funds. So the Department of Labor has no sense of humor on that. What you pay those, or they're going to come after you like boom right now. So you have these cash flow problems, which whether it's certainly not Mount Diablo Unified School District would do that, but maybe some of the sources of your funds or your GC or something happens in there that creates a slow pay situation. Workforce numbers. You're going to struggle to get workforce numbers in these more complex projects if you haven't made a commitment to your building trades and union people, because we have the apprenticeship programs. We have the 35,000 workers. The other people do not have that level of workforce and cannot muster up that ability to do your complex projects. It's just a fact of life. Architects and engineers and other on-staff people, smaller contractors can't afford that. And equipment and technology, BIM and all the other new fancy things that they have in construction to make it go quicker, faster, smarter, easier, fewer mistakes. They cost tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars. So these smaller contractors cannot afford it. Most of the BTCs, the Building Trades Councils, the vast majority of them have thresholds that are well under $100,000. Over in Napa Solano, they just did a citywide PLA for the city of American Canyon. Their threshold was $250,000. And it's not uncommon to have it at zero. And frankly, the reason why we have it at $1 million, yeah, I'll go ahead and toot my horn a little bit, is I insisted on it. I said, hey, if we're going to be out there talking about local hire and fairness, then we have to give the mom and pop, and some of them are union and some of them are non-union, but we have to give them a chance. So if God forbid, a tree falls on this building and punches a $350,000 hole in it, then they should have the opportunity to come and repair that and do that work. And frankly, many, if not most of our signatory contractors are not bidding that type of work. So we're trying to create a level playing field. But if you want a lower threshold, that's okay with us. So if you want something below $1 million, but I think what I'm trying to say to you is that it's fair compromise and that there is no one over $1 million. And in fact, I think Rosanna, former school board member, Dr. Clark, that you remember, she sent in an email, you may have seen it, that says, hey, if I had to do over again, I'd do $1 million or something to that effect. I haven't seen the email, but I told she sent it in, and that $1 million is, she thinks, is right for Contra Costa County. Let's talk a little bit about who has this, just so you know that I'm not picking on you guys. You know, everybody in Contra Costa has $1 million or less threshold. Everybody. And that everybody is the county, who we probably put about $4 or $5 billion of PLA work through, the Contra Costa Community College District, West Contra Costa Unified School District, Martinez Unified School District, John Sweat Unified School District, Pittsburgh School District, Akalani School District. We have PLAs with the cities of very soon, I'm hoping, Hercules and Pinole. We also have PLAs that are signed, sealed, and delivered with El Cerrito, the city of Richmond, Martinez, Concord, Pittsburgh, Antioch. I'm probably forgetting some people in there. We have PLAs with the Delta Diablo wastewater treatment. We have PLAs with West County Wastewater District. Hundreds and hundreds of millions. All the refineries, granted, the refineries are private work, has nothing to do with, but they all are working under PLAs. And why? It's because it makes sense. Skilled and trained labor. You're going to have the workforce that you need. They're safe, and it's going to be done on budget, on time. None of these people that I've mentioned have, sunk into the 7th layer of hell because they got a PLA. In fact, if anything, it's allowed them to do more work and better work. City of Brentwood's a perfect example. They did a PLA over there. It was a project PLA before I came on board, which means it was just on a project, and they did it for their admin building, and the work was so good and so on time and on budget that they had enough money left over to build the parking structure that's right next to the admin building, if you've seen it there. And then they also we did the library also under a PLA over there in Brentwood. So that kind of gives you an idea of why we think it's just smart. It's just smart business. You're not bending small contractors over the rail. Oh, by the way, I've done numerous look backs on capital improvement projects, and everybody's talking about local hire and mom and pops. And the truth of the matter is maybe 1 or 2 of them bid on the work. If there is no this huge rush for local hire contractors. Maybe there's a hidden wave out there that I don't see, and that's okay. And if it's there, that's great. It's $1 million. It's fair and it's equitable. Next question from board member Nzewé. Why do you want a PLA agreement that doesn't have to be negotiated? Well, that's a little misleading. In that it's not what I would call a true evergreen that we're looking at. What we're looking at for this, we're looking for a 5-year term. So that's what we're asking, $1 million threshold, a 5-year term, and it has a rollover clause. And I'll read you the language here in it. And I guess I want you to keep thinking, if it ain't broke, why are we trying to fix it? So this is the language that we have suggested to your team, and it's as follows. Prior to each 5-year anniversary of the effective date, school district and council shall meet to discuss proposed changes, if any, to the agreement. Absent school district's request for changes or termination, the agreement will roll over for additional 5 years. Saves you time, saves you money. If you like it, I don't understand why you run your head through the wall. If you like it and it's working and it's doing everything we said it was going to do, and it's providing you with the world's best skilled and trained workers, and they're doing it on budget, on time, it's safe, all that stuff, local hire, multipliers into the local economy, all of that. Why would you renegotiate that? So Again, it saves both sides time and money, and to me, it just makes sense. And so you have the out. And frankly, you can come to us anytime you want and you say, Doug, I don't know, Bill, you lied to us. We hate this PLA and we want to cancel it. Okay. We'll go back and figure out what we got to do to get a PLA back here. But we're not trying to put anybody's head in the guillotine or put a gun to their head. You can get out whenever you want to get out. It's pretty much just that simple. The last question that I would like to speak to is, what are the reasons other entities in our area have denied entering the PLA agreement? I'm not sure where that comes from. All of those agreements that I mentioned, and that was not all of them, but say 15 or 20 of them. Those where we sat down, we negotiated it, we got it done, and we're in agreement. To my knowledge, in the history of PLAs, which go back, the first one I think was the county back in, I want to say 2002. I don't think there's been a single PLA that has been voted down, rejected, the PLA, by an elected body. The only thing that I can think of off the top of my head is in the city of Brentwood. We've hit a little bit of a lull, just like we hit a little bit of a lull here. I'm not calling what we have here a failure, just like I'm not calling what we have in Brentwood a failure. So it'd be nice if everything was a rocket ship to the moon, but it's not. Everything's not falling off a log easy. There's bumps along the way, and we're in a little bit of a lull, but we have our strategies, and one way or another, we will have a project labor agreement in the city of Brentwood sometime. Maybe not before I retire, but sometime we'll have an agreement in there. You can mark my words on that. But that's the only one. I can't think of another PLA anywhere that we have failed to bring to fruition in negotiations. And there's dozens of them, frankly, public and private. So with that in mind, I've answered all those questions. We have other people that like to speak, and I'll be here for answering any questions. Like to call me back up if you have questions. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you, Dr. Clark. Thank you, Cesar.
Thank you.
Bill, did you want to introduce yourself briefly before we move on?
Just for the public that might be watching on video later.
Thank you.
Hello, public. Bill Whitney, Contra Costa Building and Construction Trades Council. I'm the CEO. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me.
Thank you.
All right, so we can take public comment. We will start with Anthony Vasuso.
Good evening, board. Thank you for having us here tonight and letting us speak on this. My name is Anthony Vescuso, and I'm a business agent for the Heat and Frost Insulators, Local 16. And I'm actually here tonight to speak on behalf of not only my members, but I also want to speak in favor of the school district and actually for your students as well. I'm a former graduate of Northgate High School. I was one of the students that we heard the teachers talk about that was kind of the problematic one in the class. And I ended up, I remember my junior year of high school, I remember Mrs. Gonzenbach, she was my American Studies teacher. And she told me, Anthony, if you don't start doing your homework, you're going to end up being a construction worker. And that was like a bad thing. Right. And it took me 16 years out of high school, bouncing around from construction job to construction job, all non-union, getting a quarter raise like every year or something like that, just in the worst possible conditions. I joined this union over a decade ago. And this union, I live just outside the district in Pittsburgh, but I'm a one income family. My wife and my son get to stay home. My wife gets to take care of my son because I'm in this union. So I'd like to advocate for everybody tonight. And I wrote a little something. I'm going to read this. So the schools exist to create the jobs of the future. Not everyone's going to go to college. Construction workers typically make up about 30% of the workforce, and union members on average make 30% more than their non-union counterparts. Additionally, union workers are motivated to stay in their career and become highly skilled thanks to the pension plans. This means we have the most experienced professionals that we have paid to train to the highest standards to do one job and to do it well. This is who you want building your schools. And this opportunity is one you'll want available to your students. In order to keep these jobs available, we need the policies in place that are going to create those jobs. Recently, there was a law that was just passed, AB 800 at the state. It goes into effect August of next year, and it has to do with educating students at 11th and 12th grade about labor policies, about unemployment insurance, workman's comp insurance, collective bargaining, all of these things. It also mandates that the unions will be invited to job fairs. That opportunity wasn't there when I graduated high school. It was either go to the military or something else. And I wasn't college bound. And the military in '96, Clinton was closing down the military bases. So that option got closed for me. So I just strongly want to urge you guys to move this forward. One last thing I'll say is when we build projects in our own backyards, we drive by that building and we say, hey, I built that. And we take a lot of pride in that. And we do our best work when we build where we live. So I just want to encourage you guys to push this forward. Thank you.
David Calderon.
Council. My name is David Calderon. I'm with the Bricklayers and Allied Craft Workers, Local 3, Northern California. I'm also a delegate on the Contra Costa Building Construction Trades Council. Joining the union, I've been in the union for 20 years now. I'm a field representative. I started at the bottom with the tools. You know, joining the union was the best thing I ever did for myself and for my family. I have a good job, medical, dental, vision, retirement, and I'm able to live where I work. It's the best thing I ever did. I can't say it enough. Unions are the best workers. We're the best skilled. We're the safest. If you want the job done right, you hire a union. You know, we don't exploit our workers. Everybody makes a decent living wage. Thank you. Please move forward with the PLA. Thank you.
Stephen Burnett.
Hello, everybody. My name is Stephen Burnett. I am a union sheet metal worker, and I live in this district. And I have a school-age son who's also in this district, and I have one more child who's about to be ready to start school in this district. And I urge the school board to enter into a project labor agreement with the Contra Costa Building Trades. PLAs have been used on construction projects for decades, and they have a proven track record of success. PLAs offer a number of benefits for school districts, including on-time and on-budget completion of projects. High quality construction, local middle class career opportunities, economic development, and community benefits. As a union tradesman, seeing a PLA in place here shows us your constituents that you care about your family, sustaining wages, pathways into the middle class for our kids, and safe and healthy work environments for your neighbors. Worker exploitation is rampant in various areas across the Bay Area. A PLA ensures that this school district is not on that list of concerns. The building trades have worked with MC3 apprenticeship programs for years in an effort to break down traditional barriers to employment. Help us continue that great work by ensuring we have projects to put these folks on and provide them with a pathway to the middle class. Sign a PLA. Thank you.
Ryan Lang.
Hi, good evening. My name is Ryan Lang. First of all, I'm a second generation graduate, Mount Diablo Unified graduate. Both my children graduated from Concord High School. I've spent hundreds of hours volunteering my time coaching varsity sports at Concord High School. I've attended a handful of career fairs that the district puts on at the high schools. And we talk about giving our students who aren't interested in college a pathway to the middle class by joining a building trades union. So please consider signing the PLA. Thank you.
Jaime Gonzalez.
Good evening. My name is Jaime Gonzalez. I'm a member of the Operating Engineers Local 3 and part of the Contra Costa Building Trades. And our office is here in Concord. I'm here today to ask you to provide a clear direction to staff to proceed in negotiations with the Contra Costa Building Trades and finish up with the project labor agreement. This will help local economy by providing local jobs to local skilled residents. And I also want to say that a week ago today, I participated at the Concord High Job Fair, providing students with information about our apprenticeship programs, which many students were interested in. In the PLA, this will create opportunities to graduate students. So let's get the ball rolling and get a PLA going. Thank you.
Rebecca Barrett.
Good evening, everyone. Superintendent, board president, board members. My name is Rebecca Barrett. I'm a proud alumni of the school district, graduating from Concord High School along with my two siblings. And I also serve on the Contra Costa Community College Board. I did just want to share information with the board that we too also have a project labor agreement with the $1 million threshold and the 5-year rollover clause with the option for a reopener. Our college district's building all the time and quite significantly right now. DVC just opened a brand new arts building. We have a new athletic center, a brand new swimming pool, all built with under project labor agreements. We also have lots of little construction needs that just pop up all the time, right? Like pipes burst. We had flooding last year because of all the rain, cracks that pop up, and we've just never had any really significant problem with making sure that the construction work gets done. I see this as just a phenomenal opportunity for us to live our values of supporting our students, right? Myself and my sister both went on to college. My brother, a graduate of this district, did not. And if he hadn't found his way into a labor hall, he would not be making a livable wage right now. Someone previously just said that a teacher once told them, if you don't get your act together, you'll end up in the trades, or you'll end up working construction. And that can be quite a threat. And particularly if it is going into a low road job where you're not making a livable wage, you're getting up at 2 a.m. in the morning to drive all over the state to find work somewhere. Or it can be a promise. If you're making a livable wage to support your family, building in your own community, and supporting your local school district, that's not a threat, that's a promise. And I'd encourage you all to help us live up to that promise. Thank you.
Tom Hansen.
Evening, Mr. Clark, members of the board, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Tom Hansen. I'm the business manager of IBW Local 302, the electrical workers. So there's not a lot of us around that were back when this was attempted with a pilot project. And when that opportunity went away, the trades didn't go away. We stayed connected to the district. We work with the district. Anytime the district asks us to come support their students and show them the path to the building trades, we've always been here. So we've always been a partner to this district in trying to find a path to the apprenticeship for your students. Why $1 million threshold? The more work you can get underneath the PLA, the more apprenticeship opportunities there are. We don't do like colleges where we train people and then put them out on the street and say, now go find yourself a career with your education. Our apprentices get paid to go to work every single day. We are the original earn to learn. Everybody talks about earn to learn now. We are the earn to learn. And our apprentices earn a living and go to school at the same time. And when they get done, they know exactly what they're going to do. They know exactly how much they're going to make, and they're going to have a retirement so they can retire with dignity, and they're going to have health care for themselves and their family. So why $1 million? It's a good number. It's what we've used throughout the county, but it gets the more apprenticeship opportunities, the better. The more hours there are, the more apprenticeships, because you can only train the apprentices that you can employ. And that's why PLAs are so important and the threshold is so important. Thank you.
This one says Bill Whitney. Bill, do you have more to say? Okay. Troy Notragello.
How you doing, board members? With Painters Union, we have had a summer repaint campaign going on for the past 3 years, monitoring repaint projects all in all the school districts everywhere in Northern California. And through that, we found that you're not getting the value that you deserve on these repaints, especially. Through the monitoring, we found that a lot of these contractors don't have any certifications for the equipment that they're running. They don't have any apprentices that have been through state certified apprenticeship programs. We found they don't do the prep work that they are expected to do through the bids that they're bidding on, and also that they're not giving the proper coats. They're supposed to be giving, in general, 1 coat of primer, 2 coats finish. You're lucky if you get 2 coats generally on most of these projects that the non-union contractors are doing that we found. Sometimes it's just 2 coats of finish. Sometimes it's 1 primer, 1 finish. And so you're not getting the value that you deserve on these projects. If we get the PLA passed, we'd have state certified apprentices working on these projects, and they'd be trained apprentices. I'm not sure if you've heard from ABC yet. Are you aware of who the ABC is? Association of Building Contractors. So if you haven't heard from them, you're going to hear from them at some point. My friends at the ABC, I've known them for quite some time. We're alike in some ways, but very different in a lot of ways. We're both in construction industry, but for very different reasons. I believe in the opportunity for local people to be able to make a livable wage that gives them the dignity to thrive in their communities and make the companies they work for great profits, and all this being done by skilled and trained people that live here and take pride in what we do in our community. Instead, the ABC, who represents not even 0.5% of the contractors in the United States, wants to lower the standards and wages so their companies can make greater profits on the backs of underpaid workers they represent. ABC makes big claims of their apprenticeships and workers with big promises that it's rare that any of them make it to graduation, giving them dismal graduation numbers in their program, while our proven accredited apprenticeship programs continue to train and graduate workers to become strong, successful members of our community. The ABC brought so much negativity to the Antioch City Council meeting. They asked them not to come back until they had a more positive message. Let's see, the mindset of the ABC is bring negativity to our proven PLAs instead of proving that the weak, broken system they have is truly working. I trust that this council will see right through all the negativity that they produce, to see them for what they truly are, and also support the local working members of this community by supporting the proposed PLA. I appreciate all you do as board members. I know a lot of you do as board members goes unappreciated, but I guarantee if you pass this PLA, it will definitely be appreciated. Thank you very much.
Dan Reynolds.
Good evening, Dr. Clark, board members. My name is Dan Reynolds. I grew up in a union household. I was a teacher and proud education union member for 15 years in this district. I am in a union now, and I work for a labor union as a staffer for the California Teachers Association, working with the Mount Diablo Education Association, who are members of the Contra Costa Central Labor Council alongside sibling unions in the building trades. Appreciate all the union siblings here in the room tonight and those who spoke. The district should always seek to ensure that workers are paid a living wage. Project labor agreements ensure prevailing wage. They ensure local hire, and they provide education through apprenticeship programs. Please support a PLA with $1 million threshold, a 5-year term, and a rollover clause that allows the PLA, when it works, to continue. Thank you.
All right, so we can probably move on to board questions, comments, any questions at this point or
I have a
comments?
few questions. Bill Whitney, if you could come back up.
Thank you, Bill Whitney, Contra Costa Building Trades Council. Also, I forgot to mention, a proud YV graduate. Go Warriors.
Oh,
There you go.
you mean wolves? You mean wolves?
Are they Wolves now? Okay.
They're wolves now.
All
yes.
right, all right. Go Wolves.
Thank you. So I have a question about the who is responsible? Let me just ask the question. Is it true that when we don't have a PLA, that school districts are held responsible for ensuring that the state mandated prevailing wage laws are followed by all of our contractors and subcontractors?
The owner, generally speaking, I would say, yes, they are responsible for doing compliance regardless. So there's always a question of if you bring in PLA and building trades, that your costs are going to go up. That's just not true. I mean, the only cost that I can see in that process is that you have to retool your bid documents to say, hey, we have the PLA, and oh, by the way, here it is, it's attached. And then after that, you get the bids in, and then we do all the work. You know, we hold the pre-jobs, and we, get together with the contractors, and we go to work and make it all happen. So if I understood your question, board member, it's this, that there is a certain cost mandated by the state to make sure that compliance is out there. And the compliance is, this is where it gets tricky, because then you have misclassification. And you may not know what that is, but it's against the law for starters, but you have a laborer as an example, and you're paying somebody laborer wages. And this happens a lot with the non-union contractors, because they have a laborer, and then they'll have the laborer doing in the afternoon plumbing work, and then the next day in the morning doing electrical work. And those are at a higher wages and higher scales, higher benefits. They still pay them at laborers things. So that's very hard to catch. But that goes on out there in school project. You see it all the time. You'll see on a Saturday or Sunday, you see people working on a Saturday or Sunday, they're cheating. And the reason I say that is because Saturday is time and a half and Sunday's double time. Who's going to pay that? Unless you're in.
And that's a state law that Saturday
Yeah,
is?
that's a state law that you have to be paid those wages, on Saturday and on Sunday. So where I'm going with that is that it doesn't happen with the building trades. And the reason it doesn't happen with the building trades is, one, we have a collectively bargained agreement that is the backstop and has the backs of all of our members. And also, when you bring in whoever it is, it's bricklayers or it's painters or it's electricians, I'm gonna get in trouble because I'm gonna forget somebody here, all the crafts that are here tonight, and then the others that weren't able to be here tonight, when they show up, it's like having boots on the ground compliance workers, because they know what the laws are. They were taught what the laws are. They know what payday is. They know what their benefits supposed to be. They know what you can do and what you can't do. And they know that, you're up here, you got to be tied off. You got to do this, you got to do that. They know about requirements for confined spaces and breathing apparatuses, because that's all taught and part of their curriculum. Did that answer your question?
It did. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you have another one?
I think that was my only question for you.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for this?
Thank you.
I did have a question for the community college. If Rebecca Barrett, if you'd be willing to answer a question for me. Because you talked about the community college PLA. I thought I had read that the community college district used to have a higher threshold, and then you lowered your threshold. So why did you do that, and how did it go?
So we lowered our threshold, I believe in 2021. For what it's worth, we believe in expanding how many workers could be, how many projects could be available for this type of work. We have a pre-apprenticeship program at DVC. We really try to work very closely with our partners in the construction trades to make sure that we're providing an workforce pipeline and that our students are getting the best, highest paying, safest jobs possible. And if we can help build that environment and ecosystem for our students to enter the workforce that way, I think that's as a trustee, that is part of our responsibility.
So sometimes we hear that there may be a project that's under $1 million or close to $1 million where it's a small job and maybe it's like too small for these larger union entities. So if that was in 2021, it's been a couple years, have you run into a situation like that where you couldn't get workers to come out and quickly fix that burst pipe that you mentioned?
Yeah, certainly it has never come to the board level that type of situation has happened. Of course, staff to staff can have those conversations. But the board is notified when significant, it's called some type of significant issue occurs. The board is notified and a pipe burst fits under that qualification. It's fixed. As far as I'm aware, we've never had a problem.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
And I just briefly have just a quick comment. I just want to appreciate what was mentioned about the apprenticeship programs. And I wanted to say that it was either 4 or 5 years ago when I was still teaching in the district. I was at like a district-wide PD, and the counselors were their faces lit up when they talked about visiting one of the apprenticeship programs. They went on a tour, and we kind of as teachers were thrilled to hear about some of the tests that they were going to have to pass. And we thought, this is a great thing to remind them of, to keep students on track. And I'm always pleased to see students go into a variety of fields. And it's just great to be able to partner in that way and support our students. And we appreciate people being able to attend our career days and things like that, and to tell our students about those opportunities.
Can I say, it's Keisha, the voice from above. I don't know if you can hear me. Sorry.
Your volume's not very high.
Okay,
a little bit
let me,
more
yeah,
loud, please.
I have my question is very simple. I couldn't hear Mr. Alvarado. Thank you for your presentation. But I couldn't hear when you said the next steps would, coming back and looking for direction, but I couldn't hear all of that. And I don't know if that's all you said, but just looking forward and looking ahead to what the next course of action is.
I actually couldn't hear her very well, but I understand that she's asking about what the next steps would be. So in light of the fact that we do have a mandate that is so dated, we need essentially a new mandate from the board. So what we propose is to bring this item to you as an action item going forward, for the board to make a determination, number one, as to whether a PLA should be adopted by the district, and then any parameters that the board wishes to instruct us to pursue as we go forward in a negotiation process. And then thereafter, the issue would simply be a matter of re-engaging in negotiations and bringing forth a finalized contract that it will be tentative in nature, subject to final board approval, should the board elect to do so. So that will be the next steps. And because this was a contentious item back then, and it may remain a contentious item today, it makes sense for the board to, number one, be heard, and for the public to be heard, and for this to become an open process, which is always what we were looking for. And given the fact that this is so dated, we thought that it makes sense then at this point to step back and then bring this item to the board for the board's consideration and for the board's ultimate decision on this matter publicly and upon discussion and presentation of all the items that are in contention.
Thank you. I have a question for you as well while you're here. So there was some discussion about the idea of a rollover renewal. It seems to me that we do have other rollover agreements in our district. For example, in today's agenda, we have an item about the license agreement with the tower for the radio transmitting tower lease with KVHS. And it has a clause that says this agreement should be automatically renewed unless either party gives to the other notice prior to the expiration of the term. So it seems to me that a rollover clause as Bill Whitney read out to us is something that we have done before. Is that correct?
Yes, but as a practice and going forward, and as since I've been here at least, we've made it a practice to try to discourage rollover clauses only because we think that the issue as to whether a contract well, number one, it's recommended that contracts have a finite term. Oftentimes we find contracts that actually are undefined in terms, and sometimes they last forever. They're called evergreen contracts, and they create issues, significant issues in terms of compliance with the contract as well as board oversight. So we always encourage contracts to have a finite term, specified term, whatever that may be, and that there not be a rollover provision that automatically rolls it over, so that there be an opportunity for both sides to discuss and to re-engage, and then to have once again an open process on the item at hand. Now, as to that tower for the radio station, we have requirements under the FCC in order for us to be able to keep the license to have to keep the station on the air. So it has to be broadcasting at all times. So because of the nature of those agreements, and because we are actually leasing the tower from a third party, this is not the tower that is actually in the school. This is a tower that is transmitted from that the school transmit to, and then that it transmits to the general public. Because of the nature of that agreement, then that essentially what we call an adhesion agreement. So an agreement really you take the terms as given to you, given the fact that otherwise you're pretty much out of luck in terms of transmitting, and that can create issues for us. So for that particular agreement, we do have the rollover. However, we will be revisiting that issue once we resolved a pending matter that relates to that, as well as once we resolve the issue as to where the radio station will ultimately end up. What we do want to make sure is that we keep that license and that transmission going, because the moment that we stop transmitting, we will lose that license, and that would be the worst possible outcome for us.
Okay, yeah. So I hear you saying if you want to make sure that there's not a disruption that could happen, because if you have a distinct end to a contract and the board for whatever reason isn't able to schedule those negotiations to renew it, then it could expire unintentionally, perhaps. That's something that could happen. I know.
That's right. Although we do monitor these contracts, and as they are approaching the end, we then begin the process and bring them to the board ahead of time as necessary to negotiation process.
Right. Okay. So what I hear you saying is that this will come back to another board meeting. You said potentially the next board meeting, a board meeting soon, where it will be action, not just info, and we will have the opportunity to provide direction. Am I hearing that right? Okay.
And I don't know whether the next board meeting actually is a special board meeting or if it's a general. It will be the next general board meeting.
General board meeting, yes.
So I do appreciate the explanation around the rollover and evergreen, because there have been situations that I recall where Mount Diablo has gotten into legal difficulty when we had rollovers and evergreen contracts. So I know that you'll work closely if we move forward with the negotiations to make sure that the district is protected, because I don't want the district to have to go through the legal situation that happened in the past. So I appreciate that. So thank you for the presentation, and I want to thank all of the labor partners who are here tonight. I certainly enjoyed the Concord High School Career Fair, and visited every one of your tables and introduced myself. And I appreciate all of your members being there and greeting our students so enthusiastically and warmly.
All right, if that's it, thank you, Mr. Alvarado. If you guys want to escape now, this is the time. We're- Let's see.
Okay. So we'll move on to 13.1, board member reports. I'll take a volunteer if I have one.
I want to thank staff for the great presentations last week at the Parent Advisory Council meeting, as well as the DLAC meeting. There was quite an enthusiastic group and lots of discussion. I already mentioned the Concord High School Career Fair. I know at least 2 others were there. And I want to congratulate our TIS department for their certification and their 5-year extension on the WASC accreditation. I attended the Harvey Milk event with many of you, and then also had the opportunity to visit College Park High School. So thank you.
Trustee Count.
All right, I will go next. Okay. I was able to attend a class at Georgetown online that Trustee and Zawi attended as well with their Edunomics department. And it was a class on education finance and particularly some of the specifics around the ESSER funds and that the school districts are receiving nationwide. So really appreciated being able to go deep on education finance. And really just huge thank you to Meg Honey and all who organized the Harvey Milk Memorial Plaque ceremony at Northgate High. That was just a really heartwarming event and amazing to meet Stuart Milk, not only because he's the nephew of Harvey Milk, but also because of the work that he's doing to protect LGBT the community throughout the world, really this global work that his foundation is doing. So it's not only here in the United States, but throughout the world that we need to really protect people's rights. Concord High Career Fair, yes, was absolutely amazing. And I also finally was able to attend one of the Narcan meetings about fentanyl that was at College Park. And I just want to thank our staff and parents who organized those meetings for the whole community to be able to attend and organizing the student panels for us to be able to hear from. It's just, it really hits home when you hear directly from families who've been affected by fentanyl, and you begin to realize that it's the kind of thing that can really happen to anyone. It's a substance that's out there, whether you're the type of person who is involved with drug use or not. It is something that you can encounter, and it's really important for us to know how to deal with it. And the more of us that have that training and have the Narcan on hand, we can really save lives. So that was incredible to go. So I encourage anyone else, students and families, staff, to make it to the next one if you haven't made it to one yet. They're pretty incredible. I also got the chance to talk with a local parent from Valley Verde Elementary about safe routes to schools in that area. There have been some incidents of children being hit in crosswalks on their way to school. And so it's another opportunity for us to collaborate with the city transportation department and the schools to figure out how we can make all of our routes to school safer. So I appreciate her speaking up and her activism. I also was just wanted to share out, I don't know if everyone already knows about this or not, but I feel like I haven't seen a lot of information about it. But it's called Cal Kids. The state of California launched the California Kids Investment and Development Savings Program. So that's Cal Kids. What it does is give children in California a jump start on savings for college or career training. And to be eligible for Cal Kids, you just have to, your child would be born in California on or after July 1st, 2022. Or if you are a student in grades 1 through 12 in California and you're at one of our lower income public schools, then you could be eligible as well. So all participants receive a seed deposit in a CalKids account, like a bank account, to help pay for future education after high school. And so I just want to encourage all of our schools to check out the school toolkit too, because they have in all languages and in all formats, whether it's social media, posters, robocalls, tools to be able to share this out to the community. And it's all at calkids.org. So CAL kids.org. And so the more outreach we can do, the better. And when parents go on there and they register, there's already a certain amount in the bank account, but when they are activated, then an additional amount goes in. So it's really important for parents to get in there and activate it. Yeah, and then just congratulations to TISP as well. It was really great to be able to listen in on their advisory committee meetings and just hear how much just really thoughtful, careful intention goes into how we support our new teachers in this district. It's a really, really special place to be. So I really appreciate all of their work. Thanks.
Trustee Mason or Trustee Barrios?
Well, I went to many of the same things. I went to the PAC meeting and I apologize to Carmen because I didn't realize I could have came in person to the DLAC. So I was online for that. I went to the college and career fair at Concord High School. I also went to the Lights On program at Riverview Middle School and was greeted with their pamphlet that said, "Oh, we started this 24 years ago." And I said, well, then I must have been about 10 years old when you started it, because I helped start that program. And I'm like, you guys just made me feel really old. I also went to the African American Parent Advisory Committee out in Bay Point. We had some really lively parents there, and always grateful that they're willing to share their concerns. And then lastly, I went to Riverview Middle School on, I believe it was Thursday. They had the PG&E for years has been doing a wetlands program with them because they're doing a remediation of a pond out in the Bay Point area. And they come out and they bring students from Sacramento State. And it's really fascinating to realize that these kids in Bay Point don't realize what's right on their doorstep. We've got the biggest amount of predator birds out there of anywhere else. We've recently had the marsh pelicans come through, which we hadn't seen them in years. So it's really nice to have them interacting with the college students. And then I stayed there and served lunch to the kids. And then I went home. And lastly, I apologize for being late. My grandchild needed me and my grandkids will always come first. No offense.
Trustee Barrios?
Unfortunately, I did not go to the career fair because everyone turned in their slips so fast. I don't know how they did it. But I went to this HOSA conference. It's like an association where a bunch of like Healthway interested students come. They join this organization and we have competitions eventually where we can compete in like different health stuff as nursing all the way to like science and other stuff. And it's kind of fun. We learned about stopping the bleed, like using tourniquets and packing like a wound, as well as I think they did a suture class. I didn't go, but I heard it was like really, really interesting. I should have gone. And I'm excited for the college fair tomorrow. Yeah, I heard there's gonna be a lot in that. I'm excited though. And also at school, I tried changing from an IB class to a normal class that interested me, and for some reason, they were saying no. And like I heard from other students that they talked to the person that they're supposed to change like their class through, that they've also been told no. And I've been wondering, I'm like, it's not a problem of it being the middle of the school year and it's too late. It's a problem of, I don't know. She just told me no. I don't know why. But eventually, I think she called Sharice. Trustee Sharice. She called you? Yeah. But I'm not sure why she's telling students no, because students really, really want to change out of some of their classes, but they're not able to. So I'm gonna try to see what's happening. But overall, I think I think YBHS has been doing good. A bunch of different clubs have been started, which is really exciting. And I think everyone is mostly focused on tomorrow's college fair because I've been hearing about it all over school about how many people are staying. And that's pretty much it. Yeah.
That college fair is at YV, but it's for the whole district, right? Anyone can come.
Yeah, anyone across the district can come and chat with all the representatives from all the colleges. I don't know.
Six 6:30. President Nzewi?
I'll pass since I can't be heard well.
All right, we'll get you next time. For my report, I don't have much to share. I was able to attend the dedication ceremony at Northgate for the Harvey Milk plaque, and that was already spoken about. So I'll just say that I really appreciated the speeches. They were really heartfelt, I just was so glad to see how well attended the event was, and just how positive that space felt in the room, like despite it being, also emotionally charged, which is kind of an interesting combination, but it felt very appropriate. And I'm so glad that we have that plaque there in the gym at Northgate. And that's all I have to share this evening. Dr. Clark?
I will be extremely brief because I know we have a very tight agenda tonight and lots to discuss, but I just want to continue to bring attention to Joseph Alvarico, our teacher of the year. There's 1,100 school districts in California, and I believe that there were 3 teachers out of those 1,100 school districts, which equates to thousands of actual schools and tens and tens and thousands of educators. And to have the only educator in all of Northern California designated as that is obviously it's a personal achievement for him, but I think it's also just an achievement for the environment that's been set up for him to thrive. And I really would like, for the way that he approaches working with young people, for that to really be a model within our district. As our students are facing more challenges than ever with just the overwhelming influence of social media, with the pressures of college and career, with the academic pressures of school and the social pressures that are out there, our students need the adults in this district more than ever. And oftentimes it's easy to look for someone else to take over that responsibility. And I think that the more that an individual just stands and really takes on that responsibility of, I'm going to create the best environment for my students to be successful in, regardless of the external factors, I think that more of our educators would be recognized as Mr. Alvarico is being recognized. So I just want to continue to shine a light on him, and looking forward to all the accolades that he's going to receive at the state level. And I know there's a very special gala that will be taking place, and just real excited to use him as a model of what we all really should strive to be. I also, just in closing, I want to just again take an opportunity to recognize this board for its leadership in really putting kids first. With the goals that you set, with the expectations that you have for always putting students at the center of your decisions, I think it makes it crystal clear of what we stand for as a district. And if we go back over the last several years and look at the actions that this board has taken, they are always in making decisions that really benefits our students and also those who take care of our students. So just very thankful for your leadership and thankful to be part of this governance team. And we have lots of work ahead of us, and looking forward to continuing to serve our students. And as we saw earlier this evening, we have some of the most amazing students around, and to hear to hear those students educate us all on hearing devices and the different types of hearing assistance that's needed out there and their experiences in our schools. It's just a real testament to the leadership on this dais. So again, that concludes my report. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for what you're saying about how Mr. Alvarico is a model for many of us. Being able to see him in action firsthand, I absolutely feel that way. That there are times where I think we can be in kind of the old model of like sage on the stage, like I'm the teacher and I'm supposed to just impart information to people. And one of the things that he talked about in his acceptance speech at the county level, county event, Teacher of the Year event, was how he made that transformation himself from being that sort of teacher to being the sort of teacher who is actually going to step back and let the students lead their own education and their own, and so I feel like if we have a recording of that somewhere, or maybe we can record his next speech at the state level, wherever he does that, to really share that out, because there's more details than I can express for him. But I think hearing from him in his own words, what his whole philosophy is and how he does this, and for people to witness it, by going and seeing him in action, seeing the robotics team in action, it's really an incredible thing. And it goes beyond, I just love the way he has such regard for students, and for their abilities and for their future, and they feel that, and they just rise to the occasion. And so yeah, I hope we can keep replicating that all over the district. Thanks.
I'll just say that some parents, a family reached out to me and applauded his recognition because their students had him when he taught at Oak Grove Middle School. And they were just as inspired by his style in the classroom at that point in time as he is now. And I think what's impressed me is, because I've watched him in the television and media interviews, is his humility. He engages the reporter in such a way that it brings out the reporter more than it shows off his abilities.
Yeah.
So he just has that touch. I agree.
We should all be very proud.
All right, so I guess we should move on to the consent agenda. Are there any,
Yeah, I'm going to pull item 15.18, and we're going to bring it back at a later date. With that, we're looking for a motion.
Madam President, Vice President, I move to approve the consent items as presented, with pulling item 15.18.
15.1.
15.18. Yeah.
Second.
Trustee Barrios,
Yes.
Trustee Cound,
Yes.
President Zawi,
Yes.
Trustee Mayo,
Yes.
Trustee Mason,
Yes.
and I also vote yes. And that motion passes. Right, so that moves us on to 8.18.0 business action items. 18.1 review of changes to board policies and administrative regulations per California School Board Association recommendations, September 2023 quarterly update.
Are there any questions on this item?
I have a comment on one of them. That's why I fought the traffic to get here tonight. I've been waiting for years to make this comment. I was very excited when I first looked at the homework one, where I saw that they were deleting when a student repeatedly fails to complete homework, the teacher shall notify the student, parents, or / guardians as soon as possible. So corrective action can be taken prior to release of any final grades or report cards. Homework does not do anything for student learning. Homework teaches kids responsibility and life skills. I don't think this should be part of the grade. And I know sometimes we cave to parents who want their kids to have a lot of homework, or teachers that feel they need to send a big packet of homework home, but there really isn't any data to support that helps children's learning. Suggesting they read 15 minutes at night, letting them finish an assignment they didn't finish in class. Those are all appropriate things, but I don't understand why we keep thinking we need to hand kids a pile of homework that really doesn't have anything to do with what we're trying to teach them. So I'd like to see it struck, because I saw it struck and then it showed up later. So I would like to see it just taken out. I don't think homework should be considered. And I can tell you, as working 22 years in the classroom, I never saw homework considered toward anything but a mark on a chart to say the kids brought it back, which is nice for teaching responsibility, but not math facts.
So do you feel that way also with essays and those sort of things?
Not if it's a specific assignment that the kids are going to work on, but just to give homework for the sake of giving homework every night is what I have a problem with. And I think that happens all the time.
So I'm wondering if there's a way to tease out the differences. Because I think that some graded homework, what I would call homework, is important, because that's how how I learned and my children have learned.
I wonder if part of it has to do with the age level too. Like I know that many of our elementary schools have stopped the practice of like giving busy work essentially, right? But when you get into the high school levels, you might be working on a big project, a comprehensive essay that you're working on over time, and things like that, where you would need to do some of it at home. So I wonder if
Then
that's
you
the
would get
difference.
graded on the project and the essay,
Right.
whether you did it at home or whether you did it at school.
Yeah. So maybe what it is it goes to our grading practices. If we look at, and I know we're in the process of transitioning our grading practices. So if teachers still have a section of grading that is just called homework versus being the projects. So maybe we would need to hear from our teachers on that.
Well, for
I had a teacher right here.
I'm perking up. I love this. So I don't know like how much we've really talked about grading practices, and policy. And I know at where I work, we've been undergoing a lot of staff training on grading for equity and a little bit of standards-based grading. And we have board policy around both the categories and percentages for our grading components. So a grading component, for example, in an English class could be, homework class where it could be one category. And then, there could be the final. There's projects, performance assessments, performance tasks, things like that. And at the end of last year, we were able to kind of get be excused from those components if we went to a grading for equity training. And then we could, to align our practice with more equitable practices and expectations, we could submit a waiver to the governing board, and then we could change our categories. And so when I did that a couple of school years ago, I changed my categories from those very specific ones to formative and summative. And I feel like that's kind of what we're talking about a little bit. Formative and formative can be and should be weighted like much in a much more smaller category, and then summative should be a much larger category. Formative work is kind of has to do with like practicing skills. It could be like, for example, like as an English teacher, like if I just recently assigned an essay, the rough draft would go into the formative score, and then we can give students feedback, and then their final product work goes into the summative. Anyway, so it really kind of so that students are really kind of graded on their final product work, and students kind of know kind of what needs to be done to kind of lead up to that, and they're getting feedback along the way. But students also like we're not making like kind of those, we're trying to be like more mindful of like kind of assigning the volume of work that we're assigning, and then also that work, especially kind of graded on completion, should maybe be for fewer points. But anyway, but we're looking at this. We have as a school site, we've realigned our grading categories this year, and I think the district is looking to align like district-wide next year. So we're engaged in this work. It's really interesting, and I feel like I just don't really hear that much about kind of what we're doing here on this, and I would be really interested to know what this kind of process looks like at our school sites, and then, you know, potentially a larger working group. Anyway,
I just feel when we look at our goal 4, all students don't have the same equity when it comes to doing their homework. If they are responsible for cooking dinner, they don't have time to do that. If they have a job after school, they don't have time to do that. If there's 3 families living in the house, there's not really a quiet place to do much of anything. So I just don't think homework needs to be counted toward the grade. Now, if you want to give an essay assignment, that whether you do it all in class or you do some of it at home, and they choose to do it at home, I just think you're really testing their responsibility if you're doing a checklist of did they do this homework, and then it counts toward their grade. I think few adults take work home because they love their job so much they just want to keep working. They take work home because they didn't finish it during the regular school day.
it's an assessment of their resources and not of their knowledge of the content.
Right. So if this policy 6154 is called homework / makeup work, I wonder if that's like, you know, have districts like if your district, for example, where you teach, do they still have a homework policy 6154, or did they change that in the process of changing the grading policy? Question. I'm not sure.
Well, I agree with Mrs. Mason on many of your points. The most frustrating thing for my students was when there was the expectation that a homework packet would be done, and then it was never looked at by the educator. And of course, we did the homework because that was the right thing to do. They still learned from the information if it went beyond busy work. So there has to be follow through on both sides, I think. And I do agree that it imparts responsibility too. That's all I'll say.
Can I
You wanna have
say,
a homework policy and it's marked under citizenship or some other skill rather than their grade?
And the one thing you brought up was the title, makeup work. If they are absent from school, then we need to look at, and we want to make changes in this policy, we need to consider how makeup work is still available for students, because there are some teachers that require that work to be done in class, et cetera, and they still have to be afforded the opportunity to do makeup work.
and this is Kaisha, or go ahead. Oh, okay. I was just going to suggest that since this is an info item. Could we bring it back as this particular policy as information item and learn more about the district's efforts towards equitable grading and our surrounding friends who maybe have updated a policy to reflect equitable grading practices? So then we could have a more knowledgeable conversation and discussion about the options around grading, because I know this has been a goal of Dr. Clark's for sure.
So I just want to say this is a homework policy. This isn't grading. I mean, this grading is a whole, you know, I think we heard earlier, this probably isn't the best time to bring up grading with, you know, it's going to be something that, you know, most likely it's not going to come from me, because if it comes from the top, that's going to create resistance just from the very nature of it. This is something I would hope that our educators would want to, you know, engage in this conversation and talk about ways that students can have multiple ways of demonstrating mastery, and they can receive feedback on that. Usually in this nature, this is something that's, you know, more than likely going to have to be negotiated. And so I wouldn't want that big 3-year discussion to hold up this item on making up homework or whatnot. So I think they're two separate things. I 100% wholly believe that homework needs to be directly tied to what the students engaged in that particular day and in class. And that's really where homework should be. But even me saying that is going to create resistance or whatnot. But I mean, that's my philosophy on homework. And I think this policy just really, I mean, if you look at what was X'd out, it's really just about the responsibility of communicating with parents, right? Giving parents feedback on the progress of their student. And we're Xing that out because I guess that was a you know, right. But I'm just saying, like student, you know, I mean, yes.
It
so-
appears that the main substance of it is adding the word makeup work. So it's not just homework, it's also makeup work, and that they may use technology and that.
It's all
piece.
about providing support to our students and allowing them, not using
Yeah.
homework as a punitive measure,
Right.
but really as an extension of what's taking place in the classroom. That's totally separate than what Vice President McFerrin is talking about the work that they're doing in the Acalanes district, which I'm very, very familiar with and really would like to engage in that work, but it really has to generate from the bottom up. It can't be top down.
And I think there are teachers in our district
Oh,
that are
yeah.
engaging in that work. So maybe that's what it would be if we did want to bring it to the board, would be to ask teachers who are engaging in that if they had something they wanted to present to us.
Right, but I'm just saying that's not this policy.
That is
we're
not this
asking
policy.
for. I think
Thank you.
It's info only.
Yeah.
We've discussed it.
Got
We'll
it.
Bring it back for either approval or not approval. And then if we want to start talking more formally about grading, then I think a committee can be put together and the proper educators who are engaged in this work can get their opinion and come and present to the board, and we support them as best we can, because I think it is, you know, we got a student here on the dais right now, and if I started asking her about how she's graded and stuff like that, it would be an interesting conversation. So I'm not going to put that pressure on you, but this is just simply about homework, and grading is something a lot larger. So with that.
I did have on the a different policy, 6146.1, the high school graduation requirements. There was just a typo in number 7. It says elective instead of elective. And then I just wanted to say, I'm wondering if at some point, and maybe it's not today or this particular revision to this policy, but at what point do we look at aligning our high school graduation requirements with the A through G, so that we're not constantly explaining to students how to meet one versus the other? and having those parallel charts. So a conversation for another day, perhaps.
Say my opinion.
All right, looks like we can move on to 18.2. Review and potential approval of the initial successor agreement proposal for Mount Diablo Education Association, Medea, and Mount Diablo Unified School District's initial successor agreement proposal to Medea.
Yeah, so this item was brought to the board last meeting for info only. I know we heard from Human Resources, we heard from a representative from Medea, and tonight we're going to hear from Dr. Rubio. You got anything to add to this, or do we have someone from Medea who would like to say something about this?
I think that we're looking forward to meeting with the Medea team on Friday. It's just a couple of us from the district meeting, and looking forward to collaborating and seeing what we can, what kind of progress we can make. Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion.
Sorry, I move to approve the successor agreement proposals for the Mount Diablo Education Association and the Mount Diablo Unified School District.
Second.
Trustee Barrios,
Yes.
Trustee Cound,
Yes.
President Nzewi,
Yes.
Trustee Mayo,
Yes.
Trustee Mason,
Yes.
and I also vote yes. Right. And that passes. We'll move on to 18.3, review and potential approval of International Baccalaureate Framework aligned materials for IB Biology, IB Chemistry, and IB Theory of Knowledge.
I think this is just if you have questions, we have Ms. Sachs who's here who could answer your questions. If not, we're looking for approval for this item.
Are there any questions, or I'll entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the International Baccalaureate Framework Alignment Materials for IB Biology, IB Chemistry, and IB Theory of Knowledge.
Second.
Trustee Barrios,
Yes.
Trustee Cound,
Yes.
President Nzewi,
Yes.
Trustee Mayo,
Yes.
Trustee Mason,
Yes.
and I also vote yes. So that motion passes unanimously. Okay, so there were no closed session items for carryover. Are there any future agenda items that anyone would like to, anyone interested
I
in?
just want to recap. So we had a request to have a presentation about how we're accepting our refugee students and whatnot. And so we took care of that tonight. We had a request to bring the PLA process back to the board, and we're in the middle of that. We also had it wasn't a request, but we had made a commitment that we would bring the arts grant, the arts report back, and that's going to take place at a special meeting on Monday at 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock, Monday at 5 o'clock here on October 30th. And down the line, we'll visit grades, but that I didn't necessarily hear a formal request for that. I think I'd have to work with our CNI department to see where some of these teachers are in terms of grades. In terms of our I'm typing an email with everything I said, AI. And in terms of our next scheduled meeting, I just want to announce to this board that I will not be in attendance at the November 8th meeting, and Ms. Sachs will be sitting in my place for that meeting.
Now you're gonna look at you.
I'm not looking at her either.
So the second half of our PLA discussion will not be on November 8th? Or,
No, we're just looking for direction. I'm not gonna, the direction, Ms. Sachs well, I'm sure I'll be watching the meeting, but Ms. Sachs will convey
the
the
direction.
direction that we receive. I'm not giving a
right.
superintendent's report on the PLA, and
Got it.
and Cesar will be here to go on. We want, I imagine we want to continue that conversation. We don't
Yes.
want to delay that, so we'll
Yes,
bring that
absolutely.
back on the 8th.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,
Are there
anything
any
else?
other items, you guys? We're okay?
All right, well then I will adjourn this meeting.